Hare Krishna, welcome to this first episode of AMA Mondays, which is Ask Me Anything Mondays, AMAM. So, we are more than happy to be able to answer your questions in this episode, and we will try our best. So, first of all, we will offer our prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupah Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna. So welcome to this first episode of AMAM, which is Ask Me Anything Mondays. And in these sessions, we are trying to answer any questions that you have in your spiritual advancement, whether philosophical or practical. So the best part of this endeavor is that I will also learn so many things, because some of the questions that you asked, in fact, I think we have received over, how many? Maybe 20 over questions already. So we thank you all for that. I think Bhakta Virendra, Bhakta Vishnu Teja, you all have been the ones who have been asking the most number of questions. So we will try to go through as many as possible. And the best thing that I like about these sessions is that I also get to learn a lot, because some of the questions that you asked, I had to go through, and I did not go through all the questions actually, but I just skimmed through some of them, and some of them I haven't even heard before, honestly. So I had to do a little bit of research on that one, but not very extensive, as we have many other services here in the temple also. But in the service of Srila Prabhupada, we will try our best to answer all the questions, and if I don't know the answer, I will try to find out and I will come back to you with the answer. Alright? I'm not saying I'm perfect at all. I mean, we don't know not much of scriptural knowledge, but we will try our best. So, first question was by Bhaktin Puja. So she's asking that, my question is, if after death either soul get moksha or again participate in the cycle of birth and death, so why we offer worship to our forefathers? Why we offer Shraddha? Is it right? So, Shraddha is the final rite. In fact, there are Dasaveda Samskar, purificatory processes, and the funeral rites are the last. And of course, after that there is Shraddha also. So those constitute the last. So, what is actually Shraddha? And also she asked a related question, which is, Yeah, we will go to that later. So, what is actually Shraddha? So, I think we will go to this verse. So, we will try to finish as many questions as possible. I think we have almost 30 questions, if I'm not wrong, already. So, Srimad Bhagavatam 5.2.2, here we have a statement. Actually, there are a lot of mentions about what is Shraddha by Srila Prabhupada. This is just one of them. You see, the king became Pitraloka Kama, or desirous of being transferred to the planet named Pitraloka. Pitraloka is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. Yanti deva vrata devan pitrinyanti pitrivrataha. Chapter 9, text 25. To go to this planet, one needs very good sons who can make offerings to Lord Vishnu and then offer the remnants to their forefathers. The purpose of the Shraddha ceremony is to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, so that after pleasing him, one may offer prasad to one's forefathers and in this way make them happy. The inhabitants of Pitraloka are generally men of the Karma Kandiya or fruitive activities category who have been transferred there because of their pious activities. They can stay there as long as their descendants offer them Vishnu Prasad. Everyone in heavenly planets such as Pitraloka, however, must return to earth after exhausting the effects of his pious acts. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 9.21, Kshine Punye Martyalokam Vishanti. Persons who perform pious acts are transferred to higher planets, but when the effects of their pious acts are over, they are again transferred to earth. So, this is Shraddha ceremony. There is another reference which I wanted to point you to, which is, I think, This is from the pastimes of Sri Ramachandra Bhagavan, Canto 9, Chapter 10, Text 27. Navai Veda Mahabhaga Bhavan Kamavasham Gataha Tejonubhavam Sitaya Yena Nito Dashamimam. 1 second. Is this the actual? No, not this. I think it's in the. Vibhishan, actually, it was about 29, sorry. Yeah, Shri Shuko Vacha Svanam Vibhishanas Kosalendranumoditaha Pitramedha Vidhanena Yaduktam Samparayikam. Same translation. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, Vibhishan, the pious brother of Ravana and devotee of Lord Ramachandra, received approval from Lord Ramachandra, the king of Kosala. Then he performed the prescribed funeral ceremonies for his family members to save them from the path of hell. Purport. After giving up the body, one is transferred to another body, but sometimes if one is too sinful, he is checked from transmigrating to another body and thus he becomes a ghost. To save a deceased person from ghostly life, the funeral ceremony or Shraddha ceremony as prescribed in authorized Shastra must be performed. Ravana was killed by Lord Ramachandra and was destined for hellish life, but by Lord Ramachandra's advice, Vibhishan, Ravana's brother, performed all the duties prescribed in relation to the dead. Thus, Lord Ramachandra was kind to Ravana even after Ravana's death. So basically, a person is very attached to his body. After death, if he is very sinful, then he may remain as a ghost, still identifying himself with the body that is there and then trying to go back to that body and trying to communicate with the relatives of that body. So that way, a sinful person remains for some time as a ghost, after which he is taken to hellish planets. So we will go there, not hell, but to the verses which describe the journey of the sinful soul to hell. So actually, what happens is that a person is having attachment for his body and his bodily relations. So to rid him of all that attachment. So they burn the body. The fire is the most purifying factor and the quickest way to return the ingredients of the body back to their original states. So the cleanest way, and also it removes the attachment for the soul with the body, because as long as there are remains of the body, he will try to like go back there, and if he is ghost, so he will try to go back there, and so therefore when there are funeral rites, the mantras are also addressing the departed soul, that now move on with your onward journey and let the demigods help him in his onward journey. So in that way, it is bidding farewell. Don't remain here. Don't be attached to this body. This body is finished. It's burning here. So they burn the body. So that's one thing. And for the quick passing away of the soul to the next term of existence, because there's no point. I mean, even if he's just lingering around as a ghost, there is no point. So to save him from that hellish life, the funeral rites have to be done, and also after that the Shraddha is given. Shraddha is basically Vishnu Prasad that is offered to the departed soul, and as long as he keeps getting that Vishnu Prasad, so they do once a year. So in Pitraloka, it is one year here is 1 day there. So every day he is getting Vishnu Prasad basically. So with that, he doesn't fall down to hellish life as long as he gets that Vishnu Prasad. But when the Shraddha ceremony is stopped, then he will fall down. So this concern was there for Arjuna also in the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. If you see, he is explaining in the chapter 1, text 40. He is saying that there are so many men on this battlefield, because in the first chapter basically his argument was why we should not fight this war. What are the cons? He was trying to weigh the pros and cons of fighting this war, and all that he was finding was cons, and there was nothing in favor of fighting the war because of his improper perspective. Later on, which Krishna had actually corrected that, and finally Arjuna agreed to act on his order, and he fought the war. So in the beginning, he was considering all the scriptural injunctions, but without understanding the aim of those injunctions. This is called niyamagraha, trying to follow the rules of the scriptures, but not trying to understand the main purpose of following those rules. So the main purpose of following every rule is to smartavya satatam Vishnu vismartavyo najatu chit. Padma Puran says, sarva vidhi nishedhasur etayoreva kinkara. So all the rules and regulations of the Vedas are meant for us to get to the point where we always remember Krishna and never forget him. So that is the whole point. So if we don't come to that point of always remembering Krishna and acting by his order, then what is the use of following all the rules and regulations? When Krishna was directly present there and he is giving the order, Arjuna was considering what is there in the scriptures. The author of the scripture is telling you what to do now, directly. So that mentality of Arjuna was corrected by Krishna, and that was the Bhagavad Gita. So this was one of his considerations. Adharmabhibhavat Krishna pradushyanti kula striyah strishu dushtasu varshneya jayate varna sankaraha. So he said, there are so many men here, who are going to die, and each of these men have mothers, sisters, wives, daughters, so many women connected to them, and all of them will be left without protection, and then there will be unwanted progeny, because a woman can be easily seduced or misused or abused, and then in that way there will be unwanted children. And what will be the future of the world? So he is considering this point. This is the translation. When irreligion is prominent in the family, because we'll go to the previous verse, then we'll see, why he is saying like this. Kulakshaye pranashyanti kuladharmaha sanatanaha dharme nashte kulam kritsnam adharmo bhavatyuta. With the destruction of the dynasty, the eternal family tradition is vanquished, and thus the rest of the family becomes involved in irreligion. And the next verse, when irreligion is prominent in the family, O Krishna, the women of the family become polluted, and from the degradation of womanhood, O descendant of Vrishni, comes unwanted progeny. So there are so many religious performances in a family life, in a grihastha life, and the husband and wife must be performing these things. But if the husband is dead, then the woman will how to perform all the religious duties, and then without religious duties, without all these religious functions and all, and without the sadhus gracing the house, the woman will go, will be polluted by materialistic ideas, and in this way they may become polluted, and unscrupulous men may take advantage of such women, and women also may become irreligious, and then there will be unwanted progeny, free intermixing between men and women, and all the family traditions all will be lost, and degradation of womanhood. Then there will be unwanted progeny, unwanted children. What is unwanted progeny? It means the population which is not cultured, which is not God conscious, that is unwanted progeny. Then Sankaro narakayaiva kulagnanam kulasya cha patanti pitaro hyesham lupta pindodaka kriya. This is the reference. 1.41. An increase of unwanted population certainly causes hellish life both for the family and for those who destroy the family tradition. The ancestors of such corrupt families fall down because the performances for offering them food and water are entirely stopped. Pinda udaka Pindodaka Kriyaha. This is called the Shraddha performances. So, if the family traditions are lost, and then this Pindodaka offerings are all lost, and then the Pitara, the forefathers, they will fall down to hellish life. Then he further explains, Doshairetaihi kulagnanam varnasankarakarakai utsadyante jati dharmaha kuladharmascha shashvataha. By the evil deeds of those who destroy the family tradition and thus give rise to unwanted children, all kinds of community projects and family welfare activities are devastated. So nowadays, because of such unwanted population or loss of family traditions and the Vedic tradition in the first place, people are lost, and then the government is taking up some family welfare activities and community projects to take care of families which are broken, which are full of so many disturbing factors of domestic violence or substance abuse, alcoholism, and all these things. So, but even then, it's not solving the problem. It is just offering them some legal advice, some emotional advice, some psychological advice, and that's all. And it's not actually stopping the problem at the root. When the problem happens, then they can go there and then get some solace, get some consolation, something like that. But it's not really helping anything. It's not helping reduce the number of problems in the family. And all these are happening because of sinful life. And that's what happens when the people and the population are not educated in spiritual life, in the Vedic principles. Then everything becomes disarrayed. Everything will go in disarray. Nothing will happen, right. So this is the effect. So, and even community projects, everything will be devastated. Krishna has already given us the community project. Everything is already given. How to care for the welfare of the entire public is already given by the instructions of Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. Bhoktaram yajnatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridam sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shanti mritchati. Everybody can be peaceful. Gyatva mam shanti mritchati. Shanti, peace. One can get peace if one follows the order of Krishna. What is that? First of all, he is the beneficiary of all sacrifices. We should not try to be the beneficiary. We are trying to enjoy everything in this world, but that's not supposed to be done. He is to be the enjoyer, and he is the what is that? Bhoktaram Yajnatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. He is the owner of everything. We are fighting now, this war is going on now. And just now some India-China war has started. So why these things are happening? Because of lack of the Ishavasya conception that the Krishna, what is that? Ishavasya sarvam yatkincha jagatyam jagat tena tyaktena bhunjita ma gridha kasya svidhanam. Don't encroach upon other people's property. Because everything is given, allotted by the Lord to everybody. So we should not encroach upon other people's property, knowing that everything belongs to the Supreme Lord. So if the whole world understands that, there will be no fight. Not that my country, your country. No, everything is God's country. We should take care of it collectively. And then finally, Krishna is the supreme friend of everyone. If we acknowledge that, which means that Krishna is friend, so he is giving good advice in Bhagavad Gita. So that advice has to be broadcasted, and full facility should be given to those who are broadcasting this message. So then, in that way, the whole world will be peaceful. But they want to become the friends and silence God. Then how? What will be? Nothing will help. So this will happen when there are unwanted progeny who are completely atheistic, demoniac, and that happens because of a loss of family traditions of culture brought down by cultured families. So this is and then Pindodaka and all these things. So anyway, so this is about Shraddha described, but there is another verse which is in the Srimad Bhagavatam 11.5.41. Devarshi bhutapta nirnam pitrinam naking karonayam ranicha rajan sarvatmanayah sharanam sharanyam gato mukundam parihritya kartam. See pitrinam here. Pitrinam means the forefathers. O king, one who has given up all material duties and has taken full shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda, who offers shelter to all, is not indebted to the demigods, great sages, ordinary living beings, relatives, friends, mankind, or even one's forefathers who have passed away. Since all such classes of living entities are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, one who has surrendered to the Lord's service has no need to serve such persons separately. In other words, a devotee who has fully surrendered to the process of Krishna consciousness under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, he does not need to do all this Shraddha ceremony, because what is Shraddha ceremony? You are offering the Vishnu Prasad once a year to the departed soul. But every day a devotee is offering food to Krishna. So when Krishna is satisfied, all the living entities are satisfied, because he is the root of all manifestations. So by satisfying him, he is already satisfying all the subsidiary living entities, including the demigods, friends, relatives. Otherwise we are always a debtor. We are coming into this world a debtor. We are already owing so much. We are taking sunlight free, we are taking moonlight free, we are taking rain, we are taking air to breathe. Our own whole body was given to us by the grace of God. So we are taking everything from Krishna, and how can we not pay back and live a very moral life? No, that is immoral. So stena eva saha is explained in the Bhagavad Gita, 3rd chapter, 12th verse. So such a person is a thief, because he is taking everything from the Lord, he is not even returning it. He is not even acknowledging it, not even grateful for it. So, but once one surrenders to the Lord, he doesn't need to serve all, he doesn't need to satisfy the demigods, the pitras, the relatives, friends, living beings. Automatically, it's not that he rejects them, he automatically helps them by just being Krishna conscious. That is called Shraddha. Shraddha shabde vishwasa kohe sudhrida nischay. Sarva karma, what is that? Krishna bhakti kohle sarva karma krita hoy. This is Shraddha. Not Shraddha. Shraddha is the offering. We are talking about Shraddha, which is faith. 1 second. 22.62 Madhyalila Chaitanya Charitamritam. Shraddha shabde विश्वास को है सुदृढ़ निश्चय कृष्ण भक्ति कोयले सर्व कर्म कृत होय. Shraddha is confident, firm faith that by rendering transcendental loving service to Krishna, one automatically performs all subsidiary activities. Such faith is favorable to the discharge of devotional service. Therefore, Madhavendra Puri, he said, 2.52 purport, we have this verse from Madhavendra Puri. Sandhya vandana bhadramastu bhavato bhoh snana tubhyam namo bho devah pitarascha tarpana vidhau naham kshamah kshamyatam yatra kvapi nishadya yadavakulo tamsasya kamsadvisha smaram smaramagham harami tadalam manye ki manye name. Oh, my prayers 3 times a day, Sandhya Vandan, all glories to you. O Snana, O bathing, I offer my obeisances unto you. O Deva, O demigods, O forefathers, Pitaraha, please excuse me for my inability to offer you my respects. Now, wherever I sit, I can remember the great descendant of the Yadu dynasty, Krishna, the enemy of Kamsa, and thereby I can free myself from all sinful bondage. I think this is sufficient for me. So, this is the special thing for the devotee. Because the devotee, he can purify his entire family just by being a devotee. See, 7.9.10 Srimad Bhagavatam Viprad Vishadguna Yutadar Avinda Nabha Padar Avinda Vimukhasva Pacham Varishtham Manye Tadarpita Mano Vachane Hitartha Pranam Punati Sakulam Natu Bhuri Manaha. If a Brahmana has all 12 of the Brahmanical qualifications as they are stated in the book called Sanat Sujata, but is not a devotee and is averse to the lotus feet of the Lord, he is certainly lower than a devotee who is a dog eater but who has dedicated everything, mind, words, activities, wealth and life to the Supreme Lord. Such a devotee is better than such a Brahmana because the devotee can purify his whole family, whereas the so-called Brahmana in a position of false prestige cannot purify even himself. You remember this verse because one more other question will get us back to this verse. It's a very important verse. So you see how a devotee can liberate so many of his entire family. Family means we're talking about even ancestors. That is, I think, in the next chapter. Let's see if we can find that. I think it's 18 probably. Hmm. 17, 18, yes. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, Lord Narasimhadev is speaking to Prahlad Maharaj. Trisaptabhi pitaputah pitrabhi sahate nagha yat sadhosya kule jato bhavan vaikula pavanaha. When you say a devotee can purify his entire family, but the so-called Brahmana in a position of false prestige cannot purify even himself, this is the purification of the family of a devotee. Kula pavanaha, you see, the purification of the entire family. Pitrabhi, all the forefathers. See, now. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, My dear Prahlad, O most pure, O great saintly person, your father has been purified along with 21 forefathers in your family. Because you were born in this family, the entire dynasty has been purified. So just by being a devotee, one automatically is offering all his results of his activities to forefathers and all the, such souls. So you don't have to extraneously do anything if you surrender to Krishna. If one is not surrendered to Krishna, yes, one has to still do all the Shraddha and everything. That is once a year is offering Vishnu Prasad to the forefathers. But a devotee who is offering every day to Krishna and eating only Krishna Prasadam and offering not only the food, everything, his whole life, such a person is always offering up his results by Krishna's grace to all his forefathers' family. Everybody is benefiting from that. So that is Shraddha ceremony. So related to that question, there is another question by Bhaktin Puja again, that so funeral rites means, according to our Sanatan Dharma, we burn the body of ordinary people. Of saintly people, yes, there is samadhi. They are, buried and with proper ritual, and then there is a samadhi tomb that is constructed. So that is for exalted saintly personalities. But ordinarily, all the bodies are burnt. So as we have already explained, that it is to remove that any attachment for the body, and once it is all dust and ashes, and it is to tell the soul that alright, death has come, you have to move on. That is the meaning. And also those ashes are thrown in the holy rivers like Ganga or Yamuna, like that. in the holy river. So that will help the family. So she was asking that what will be there, what will happen if such bodies are used for medical purposes. They store them in this formalin, formaldehyde. One second. When they store this thing in formaldehyde and all that, they, for anatomy, medical learning. So actually, that's not very good, as we have seen. It's not proper. According to Vedic civilization, it is not correct. The body has to be disposed of. But this modern Western medicinal way of doing things is not the ideal way, actually. So the Ayurvedic system is very ideal. Any ailment, if the practitioner is properly trained, any ailment can be cured. But the thing is, nowadays the Western medicine, they have their own ways of doing things. Instead of taking knowledge from the Shastra, Ayurveda is knowledge from the Shastra. Like Prabhupada explained, an Ayurvedic doctor, just by touching here the pulse, he can tell what is the situation of the body, what is the situation of the health. And how does he tell? How does he know? So Prabhupada also explained that when when he touches, when it is like like birds when they jump, like how a pigeon jumps, how a crow jumps, like that. If it is in that what is that, rhythm, then it means one thing. If it is like the other bird, then it's like another thing. So basically he has to find out what rhythm, and he has to know the rhythm of the bird and how the bird jumps, like how the bird walks. So 1 2 or 1 2 3 1 2 3 like that, or 1 2 1 2, like the rhythm of that, the pulse. By that he has to match it up. Okay, which bird or which whatever is match to which it matches closest or exactly. So in the Ayurveda it is there that if this is the match, or like maybe pigeon, so these are the conditions that are going on in the body. So then he will check with the person. So do you have these symptoms? Then if he says yes, okay, then he has certain medicines. It's all already prescribed in the Shastra. So he doesn't have to do this formalin and all this imperfect way of studying the body by you are dissecting the whole body and keeping the dead body there. So they want to see and try to understand, but our Vedas actually already have. In fact, if you see our sages, in the Vedic times, their medical breakthroughs were very surprising to the modern scientist. If you actually see it, they even managed to even like with the Kauravas, the 100 sons. She actually was angry. Gandhari was angry and she beat her womb. She beat her stomach in her anger, and then that so-called like a stillbirth, that meat was cut into 100, and then that's how 100 sons came, and one daughter, one small piece was there, and that was the daughter. So in that way, how was that even possible? It is not impossible in modern science, medical science, but it was possible then. And they used to put that thing in a pot of ghee, and then mantras or whatever they chant there, and then they come out, and they were strong sons. So these kind of things were done before, but just that we have to take the knowledge from the Vedas, then it is perfect. With modern medical science, you can get a little bit of that effect, like some medical advancement has been done in the Western side also, but it's a very mode of ignorance way of doing it. Like tantric, for example, yogic powers you can have through sattvagun, sattvic powers, rajasic powers, tamasic powers. Like sattvic powers, like the yogis who meditate and then they get these powers. Like Sanjay, for example, he could see the Kurukshetra war by television, but there was no satellite and all that. He saw it with the sattvic yogic powers, but given to him by Vyasadeva. Then rajasic powers, like now what we're using actually, like this broadcast, this Facebook broadcast. This is like with all these technological devices and all this. This is also a broadcast, and this is rajasic way of doing things. It's a lot of endeavor to get to this, whereas that is also endeavor by yogic powers, but it is far more sustainable. Like with this Rajasic power, I mean, all these waves, and sometimes they are harmful. I mean, most of the time they are harmful. And to maintain this whole thing, you need electricity. You are dependent so much. Whereas with the yogic powers of Sattvic, he is independent. And then there are tamasic powers where they use this tantric way of doing things. They also get some powers, like Bishaki Sen in the Bhaktivinoda Thakur's life. There was this one man called Bishaki Sen. So he was having so many powers. He could cure people, and he could make people sick if he wanted, and he could bring about fire from his head, and very wonderful things he was doing. But all that was tantric powers, by ghostly worship, by all these dark arts. So there you get dependent on the ghosts. We have to satisfy the ghosts. Otherwise, if we don't satisfy, as long as we satisfy, then they will help with those powers, and if we don't, then they will get back on us, and it's going to be very vicious. So these kind of things. So Western medicine is kind of a Rajasic or Tamasic way of doing things. So you can get some of the effect, and it also includes a lot of contamination in that. Alright, so that was a long answer. So we need to move on to a lot of questions. Next question by Bhakta Vishnu Teja. How do Mayavadis misinterpret the verses in the Shiva Puran that say Lord Shiva came to delude people by spreading impersonalism, or do they just reject the Puranas to avoid mentally straining themselves? So we have verses from the Padma Puran, which says, actually Shiva Puran also have some verses, similar verses. But okay, for those of you who do not know what he's talking about, so we'll go to those verses. So basically his question is, what do the Mayavadis say in answer to these verses from the Padma Puran and Shiva Puran, which prove the point that Shankaracharya's philosophy is not right, because Shankaracharya is actually Lord Shiva himself, who was ordered by Lord Narayana to spread the Mayavada philosophy. So it was a deliberate move by Lord Shiva to preach atheism through Vedas. So now Shankaracharya is not at fault, for it is under the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that he has covered the real purport of the Vedas. This is from the Chaitanya Charitamrita Adilila, chapter 7, text 110. Now, these are some of the verses. This is confirmed in the Padma Puran in the words of Lord Shiva himself. Mayavadam asachastram prachannam bauddhamuchyate mayaiva kalpitam devi kalau brahmana rupina brahmanaschaparam rupam nirgunam vakshate maya sarvasvam jagatopyasya mohanartham kalau yuge vedante tu mahashastre mayavadam avaidikam mayaiva vakshate devi jagatam nashakaranat. Lord Shiva informed his wife Parvati, the Mayavad philosophy is impious, asachastra. It is covered Buddhism. It is veiled Buddhism. My dear Parvati, in Kali Yuga, I assume the form of a Brahmana and teach this imagined Mayavad philosophy. In order to cheat the atheists, I describe the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be without form and without qualities. Similarly, in explaining Vedanta, I describe the same Mayavad philosophy in order to mislead the entire population toward atheism by denying the personal form of the Lord. In the Shiva Puran, so this is what he was actually mentioning about, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Lord told Lord Shiva, Dvaparado yuge bhutva kalaya manushadishu swagamaihi kalpitaistvam cha janan madvimukhan kuru. In Kali Yuga, mislead the people in general by propounding imaginary meanings for the Vedas to bewilder them. These are the descriptions of the Puranas. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments that Mukhya Vritti, the direct meaning, is Abhidha Vritti, or the meaning that one can understand immediately from the statements of dictionaries, whereas Gauna Vritti, the indirect meaning, is the meaning that one imagines without consulting the dictionary. For example, one politician has said the Kurukshetra refers to the body, but in the dictionary there is no such definition. Therefore, this imaginary meaning is Gauna Vritti. Who is the politician? Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi was the one who said that Kurukshetra, Dharmakshetra, Kurukshetra means, Kurukshetra means this body. It is there. Kurukshetra is a very straightforward meaning. There is a place there, and it is a holy place. It is a Dharmakshetra, Kurukshetra. So the Bhagavad Gita starts with those words, Dharmakshetra, Kurukshetra. But he said Kurukshetra actually means this body. Oh, where did he get that? It's just his own imagination. These are called Gauna Vritti, explanations without reference to the direct meaning. That's why our Bhagavad Gita is Bhagavad Gita as it is, direct, and it is therefore effective. Whereas every other Bhagavad Gita that is going on in the market is just, saying whatever they want, Gauna Vritti. This is the distinction. Therefore, this imaginary meaning is Gauna Vritti, whereas the direct meaning found in the dictionary is Mukhya Vritti or Abhidha Vritti. This is the distinction between the two. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recommends that one understand the Vedic literature in terms of Abhidha Vritti, and the Gauna Vritti he rejects. Sometimes, however, as a matter of necessity, the Vedic literature is described in terms of the Lakshana Vritti or Gauna Vritti, but one should not accept such explanations as permanent truths. So, again, Padma Puran, Lord Shiva tells Parvati, Shrunu Devi pravakshami tamasani yathakramam yesham shravana matrena patityam jnaninam api apartham shruti vakyanam darshayalloka garhitam karma swarupa tyajyatvam atra cha pratipadyate sarva karma paribhramshan naishkarmyam tatra chochate paratma jivayoraikyam mayatra pratipadyate. My dear wife, hear my explanations of how I have spread ignorance through Mayavad philosophy. Simply by hearing it, even an advanced scholar will fall down. In this philosophy, which is certainly very inauspicious for people in general, I have misinterpreted the real meaning of the Vedas and recommended that one give up all activities in order to achieve freedom from karma. In this Mayavad philosophy, I have described the Jivatma and Paramatma to be one and the same. So, when these verses were shown by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he was spellbound. That's it. He could not speak any further. He became silent. He did not have any answer to that. Then he accepted the Vaishnava philosophy. But nowadays, they just reject this and give their own explanations despite all our explanations. And so Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was an intelligent man. He stopped his arguing. He accepted defeat after he was thoroughly defeated by the statements put forward by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So they really can't answer these. That's why they say Shruti is higher, Smriti is lower. So these are all Purana, this is Smriti. So the Smriti is all not as important as Shruti. Shruti is the main thing. So they can manipulate the words of Shruti. But Smriti is even more important because it highlights and demonstrates the principles mentioned in the Shruti practically in the lives of devotees. So therefore they try to downplay the importance of Smriti Shastra, but both are equally important. Next question by Vishnu Teja. What is the difference between Brahman and Paramatma, since there is a super soul in every atom? So Brahman is the all-pervading feature of the Supreme Lord, and Paramatma is the localized aspect. As the Supreme Person, he is sitting in every atom. Since he is in every atom, so what is the difference between him, Paramatma, and Brahman? It's the same thing, because Brahman is all-pervading, Paramatma is also all-pervading because he is in every atom. So what is the difference? So Brahman is also his energies, whereas Paramatma is actually a person sitting inside the atom and sitting inside each and every atom and in our hearts as well. So the energy, the atom itself, is manifestation of Brahman. So his energy, just like heat and light are energies of fire. So this is the effulgence coming out from the Lord. That is Brahman. Whereas Paramatma is said like the size of a thumb inside the heart. So he's actually a person sitting and witnessing all our activities. That's the difference. And by Maya Tatamidam Sarvam Jagadavyakta Murtina, this is the Brahman feature, which also extends as the material ingredients. So he said, Maya Tatamidam Sarvam Jagadavyakta Murtina Matsthani Sarvabhutani Nachaham Teshu Avasthitaha. By me, in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. So this is the Brahman feature and all-pervading feature by his energies. And then he himself goes into each an atom of his energies, and then as Paramatma he oversees everything. And as Bhagavan, he is in his own world, and he has his own pastimes with his devotees. That is Bhagavan. The next question by Vishnu Teja again. When the modern scientists split atoms, where does the Paramatma go? First of all, the modern scientists do not split atoms. Atom is the indivisible particle which cannot be split further. Although they say that it consists of protons, neutrons, and electrons, but they can't really split. So, even when the nuclear fission happens, the energy is transferred from one to another, and Paramatma it doesn't affect the Paramatma. It doesn't affect the Paramatma. How many atoms are there? That many atoms he will be, staying. So it doesn't really affect his situation at all. Even our death, our so-called death, doesn't affect his situation. He's not affected by that. Where does the Paramatma go? He's always everywhere. It doesn't need to be going anywhere. He's already everywhere. So, next question by Vishnu Teja. Prabhu, did Arjuna reincarnate as Kannappa Nayanmar for offending Lord Shiva after he did penances to get the Pashupatastra, or is this bogus? So I have never heard this story before, and because I have seen this question, I have just did some research, and they had the story that he was Arjuna from the Mahabharata, and he took birth as Kannappa Nayanmar for offending Lord Shiva. But again, where is the Shastric reference for all this? So it's not. How can a Vaishnava become a Shaivite? And then the whole story of that Nayanmar is he used to offer meat to Lord Shiva and all that, and Lord Shiva accepted all that. It doesn't really, of course, as Bhutanath, as a person in charge of the mode of ignorance, he does work for the benefit of the ghosts and these kind of persons in the mode of ignorance. But the fact that he is the reincarnation of Arjuna, that is not supported by the Acharyas, by the Vaishnava Acharyas. So we don't accept that story. And it's also said in that story that he had to atone for that sin of being proud against Lord Shiva when he was getting the Pashupatastra, and he therefore fought against Lord Shiva. No, not at all. Lord Shiva was very pleased, in fact, and when he is with Krishna, what Lord Shiva's curse or what, it's all a dealing between devotees. Lord Shiva is a devotee, Arjuna is a devotee. So their relationship is not, he did not commit any offense there. So this is not really in line with the Shastric references. Next question by Vishnu Teja again. Prabhu, did people come up with the Daridranarayan conception by concluding that it's the inconceivable nature of Krishna to be the richest and the poorest at the same time? So, no, they're not. They don't know actually the inconceivable nature. First of all, Daridranarayan means they think everything is Narayan. We all are Narayan. As long as we are conditioned, we do not know that we are Narayan. I don't know what kind of Narayan is that he doesn't even know he's Narayan. So this is their faulty philosophy. How can Narayan not know who he is? Even he is saying, Vedaham samatitani vartamanani cha Arjuna bhavishyani cha bhutani naham mam tu vedana kaschana. 7th chapter 26th verse. He said, I know past, present and future, everything I know. That is God. And they are saying that he doesn't even know himself. He forgot who he was and is now Daridra, is begging on the street. How is that? Come on. This is actually complete rubbish, that this Daridra Narayan philosophy. Daridra Narayan means they say everybody is Narayan, so therefore the poor man must be served because he is also Narayan. But what kind of Narayan is the poor? Narayan is the Srinivasa. He is the abode of Lord. He is the abode of Lakshmi Devi, and he is the Daridra beggar. What is this? So he is the husband of goddess of fortune. So it is not that he is simultaneously rich and poor. It is not inconceivable. They don't understand that he is inconceivable. They think they can conceive him with their senses, and they have explanations for this. But their faults are always exposed by the Vaishnavas. Next question. In Japan, it is becoming more common to marry cartoon character holograms. It's not hologram. I think it's the model. I think based on, I think they're making with silicone or something. makes it feel like a real woman, but actually it's just a doll. So in Japan, it is becoming more common to marry cartoon character dolls. They are like so-called realistic dolls, which have like realistic so-called texture of skin, but it's all made of synthetic materials. And so the question is this considered illicit sex, since it obviously isn't for procreation, but they're also not real women? Yeah, it is illicit sex basically. Whether real women or not, the tendency is to enjoy sexual pleasure, and that is illicit sex. Sex is not for just pleasure. It is a responsibility. That is human life. It is just for pleasure means that is animal, and even animals don't do this kind of things, with dolls and everything. So this is a very, very, very perverted form of illicit sex life. That's happening because of the mode of ignorance is so rampant. They don't know what to do with their lives. Completely gone berserk, these people. It definitely is illicit sex. So next question by Vishnu Teja. Prabhu, does Vyadha Gita discourage renunciation? So this is actually a very good question, because I've never heard of the Vyadha Gita before, and it made me do a little bit of a search on that. So let's read it. It's actually a part of the Mahabharata. We don't read the whole thing now. I'll see if I can take it out. I think there's a small mention of it in the Wikipedia. That's what I saw. And so basically, this was let's try to. Okay. So you see, let's do a search. It may be a bit slow. Oh, fairly fast. Okay. So it's actually part of the Mahabharata, where this was there, Vyadha Gita. Vyadha means a butcher. The Vyadha Gita, meaning teachings of a butcher, is a part of the epic Mahabharata and consists of the teachings imparted by a butcher, Vyadha, to a Brahmin sannyasi, monk. It occurs in the Vanaparva section of the Mahabharata and is told to Yudhishthir, a Pandava, by sage Markandeya. So Markandeya Rishi told this incident to Yudhishthir Maharaj about the other incident where a butcher teaches a Brahmana. So in this story, an arrogant sannyasi is humbled by a Vyadha, butcher or hunter, and learns about dharma, righteousness. The Vyadha teaches that no duty is ugly, no duty is impure. Okay, first of all, disclaimer. So Wikipedia is not a source from the Acharyas. So it is just like a reference place for us to just get an idea of what it is. But the commentary on it is not by an Acharya, and therefore it's not bona fide. So the Bhagavad Puran mentions the Vyadha as an example of someone who attained perfection through satsanga, association with devotees of Lord Vishnu or Krishna. We'll go to that in a minute. Okay, this is the story basically. The story has only three characters: a Brahmin sannyasi, a housewife, and a Vyadha, butcher. The story begins with a young sannyasi going to a forest where he meditates and practices spiritual austerities for a long time. After years of practice, one day while sitting under a tree, dry leaves fall on his head because of a fight between a crow and a crane on the tree. So some dry leaves fell on him. The angry sannyasi had developed yogic powers and burned the birds with his mere look. So he was very angry. Why? How come the dry leaves have fallen on me? He saw the two birds by fighting, and just by looking at them, he burned them to death. This incident filled the sannyasi with arrogance. Shortly thereafter, he goes to a house begging for food. Here, the housewife, who was nursing her sick husband, requests the sannyasi to wait. To this, the sannyasi thinks, "You wretched woman, how dare you make me wait? You do not know my power yet." To which the housewife says that she is neither a crow nor a crane to be burnt. The sannyasi is amazed and asks her how she came to know about the bird. Because, how did she even come to know about that story of the crane and crow? The housewife says that she did not practice any austerities, and by doing her duty with cheerfulness and wholeheartedness, she became illumined and thus could read his thoughts. So basically, she was a very chaste housewife. So by her chastity, she attained the same powers that the sannyasi, in fact, she could even read his mind, Um, that's why it is said a man gets his powers by yogic practice, by tapasya, but a woman gets her powers by chastity. So she was a chaste husband. Chaste husband. Again, I use the same word. I used this phrase the other day also. And okay, she was a chaste wife of her husband, and because of that chastity, she got so much power that she could read his mind. She got this mystic power. So that was the lesson that he learned. Wow, just by doing her duty so rigidly and so faithfully, she got such powers. Then he was quite amazed by that, and she redirects him to a dharma vyadha, meaning the righteous butcher. How can that be? So in the town of Mithila, and says that the Dharma Vyadha would answer all his questions on dharma. The sannyasi goes to see the Vyadha and, overcoming his initial hesitation, listens to his teachings, which is referred to as the Vyadha Gita, and even puts them into practice. So the teachings, okay, these are a little bit, not very well explained because it's not by a proper acharya. So basically, he says the teachings are that nothing is bad as long as it encourages you to advance. I mean, not encourages, as long as it is in the path of one advancing. For example, in the Vedas there is the slaughter of goat mentioned, that those who really want to eat meat and who cannot control their tongue, they can eat goat only on Amavasya day to offer to Kali temple that is outside the city, and that too only in the night. And those places are usually haunted by ghosts, and you have to endure all that and then go there and then say the mantra to the goat that now I am killing you, so you have the right to kill me in your next life. That is the definition of the word mamsa, meat. And then after that, kill the animal in one stroke and offer that bali to Kali and then eat that. Now, so that is that is also a Vedic rite. It is a Vedic ritual. So is it bad or good? So it depends on who is performing that. A person who is in the Sattva Gun, who is worshipping Lord Vishnu, who is a Vaishnav, above even Sattva Gun, Shuddha Sattva, pure goodness, he is not allowed to do that. It is not allowed for him. But for the one who is a meat eater, it is good for him to do that, because for him that is advancement. At the stage at which he is at, for him, that means if there is no such rule, he will eat every day. So better than that is to just eat once a month, restrict, and under so much regulations and rules, so that to discourage him basically. So that is the whole purpose. So what is dharma? And so this dharma vyadha, he actually teaches him this thing, that no occupation is good or bad if it is followed according to the Vedic rules. So accordingly, as a person is situated in tamogun or rajogun or sattvagun, or in the mixture of any of these, so depending on his position, he has to follow the particular swadharma, and in that way he will slowly be elevated. And finally, when he comes to Vaishnav, then he gives up all sinful activities and he takes to the rules and regulations for his stage of realization. So that way, the Vedas encompass all kinds of duties for all kinds of people. That's why there is Tamasic Puran, there is Rajasic Puran, there is Sattvic Puran. So some are encouraging the people in the Tamasic Guna, Tamogun, so to raise themselves to the next stage. It is not to encourage their tamasic tendencies, but to raise them from tamasic tendency to rajasic at least. So those who are at rajasic, okay, rise up to sattva. Those who are at sattva, rise up to shuddha sattva. And that's where devotional service actually is. Brahma bhuta prasannatma nashochati na kankshati samah sarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labhate param. So this is the teachings that were taught by this dharma vyadha. Now, how this butcher became, an advisor to a brahmana? So first of all, the brahmana, although he was practicing his austerities, he was very proud of his achievements, and he misused the powers that he got. So that is a misuse of his yogic power. So that is not what the Brahmana is all about. The Brahmana means it's not that because he is doing the Brahmana duty, he should condemn the Kshatriyas or the Vaishyas or the Shudras. No, it is not about condemning anybody. It is to raise them up. No, that is the Brahmin's duty. And raise them up according to their stage. So that's why it is said in the Bhagavad Gita. Where is it? Let me take it out. Okay, let's go here. So here in the 3rd chapter we find therefore chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita, text 19. Without being attached to the fruits of activities, one should act as a matter of duty, for by working without attachment one attains the supreme. So he gives the example of King Janaka. You see, 3.25. As the ignorant perform their duties with attachment to results, the learned may similarly act but without attachment for the sake of leading people on the right path. So as not to disrupt the minds of ignorant men attached to the fruitive results of prescribed duties, a learned person should not induce them to stop work. Rather, by working in the spirit of devotion, he should engage them in all sorts of activities for the gradual development of Krishna consciousness. So this is the point, that a Brahman cannot say that, oh, you are Shudra or you are condemned, otherwise, if you don't want to be condemned, you immediately give up and then become Brahmana, or immediately renounce and become sannyasi. He cannot. He has to be gradually elevated. So slowly he has to be taken out from that position, and initially it happens over time. So as not to disrupt the minds of ignorant men attached to fruitive results of prescribed duties, a learned person should not induce them to stop work. If they stop, they have to have the higher taste of Krishna consciousness. So therefore, rather by working in the spirit of devotion, he should engage them in all sorts of activities for the gradual development of Krishna consciousness. So even if he is engaged in different occupations, even as Shudra or Vaishya or Kshatriya or Brahmana or whatever, he should slowly be encouraged to do some devotional activity, some service, or come and volunteer, even like sometimes in the temple, okay, come and cut vegetables for the Lord, or come and help in some book distribution or fundraising or cleaning the temple, anything it can be, or asking them to sponsor for some festival that we are organizing. In that way, that will be a preaching, festival is a preaching a tool, because many people will come to the temple for that, and they will all be introduced to Krishna, and they'll be eating prasadam, hearing the holy name, buying some books, and contributing to the temple. So in this way, so if one supports in any way, he will become advanced. He will advance in his spiritual life. So if you ask him to give up and everything and join a sannyasa, nobody will join. Nobody is going to join because it's not the easiest thing to do. It's very difficult. So usually people should be encouraged, and then as they become more advanced, then they will automatically come to a stage where they will consider this full renunciation. And renunciation means not just doing nothing, no, fully engaged in Krishna conscious activities. So one must first engage in Krishna conscious activity and slowly rise above his position. So it is a gradual elevation process. So nobody is to be condemned. Everybody is to be, even meat eaters, for example. Yeah, it is sinful, yes, but why we go to the meat eaters and preach to them then? Because they have to be also engaged in Krishna service. Our thing is not to condemn them, oh, you're a meat eater, you're a nonsense. No. How to raise him up from the meat eater? Because many of us, we have also started off as meat eaters, but now we are, engaging in Krishna consciousness. So we have been lifted up from that position. So everybody, needs to be lifted up. If they are fortunate enough, they will take it. They will take the advice and they will rise up. Otherwise, if they are not interested, just leave them alone wherever they are. What to do? So another similar verse is 18.46. Yatah pravrittirbhutanam yena sarvamidam tatam swakarmana tam abhyarchya siddhim vindati manavah. By worship of the Lord, who is the source of all beings and who is all pervading, a man can attain perfection through performing his own work. So, suppose a man's work is about, maybe he's a musician, say. Now, okay, let him sing songs for Krishna, just like Prabhupada, he induced George Harrison to sing for Krishna. So he used his music talent, his fame and popularity, and spread the holy name to the rest of the masses. So in that way, he used his talent through performing his own work. He was encouraged to serve the Lord. So get to that. So encourage people to serve the Lord wherever they are, and slowly make them devotee. So this is the whole point of the Vyadha Gita. And next verse also, 18.47. Shreyan swadharmo vigunaha paradharmat svanushthitat swabhavaniyatam karma kurvannapnoti kilbisham. It is better to engage in one's own occupation, even though one may perform it imperfectly, than to accept another's occupation and perform it perfectly. Duties prescribed according to one's nature are never affected by sinful reactions. So if one is like say Vaishya, so he do his by quality, and he do his agriculture, cow protection, and serve Krishna, like give those produce to the temple, part of the produce of course, and milk give to the temple in that way. So in this way, and not only milk, even cow dung, which can be dried and used for yajnas, we use for yajnas, and cow urine, all these are very pure. So these can be used in that way, engage in Krishna's service. So that is one thing. And in the next verse also there is an important point. Sahajam karma kaunteya sadosham api na tyajet sarvarambha hi doshena dhumena agnir ivavritah. Every endeavor is covered by some fault, just as fire is covered by smoke. Therefore, one should not give up the work born of his nature, O son of Kunti, even if such work is full of fault. So, like actually Prabhupada explains in the purport, in conditioned life, all work is contaminated by the material modes of nature. Even if one is a Brahmana, he has to perform sacrifices in which animal killing is necessary. In the Karma Kanda section, not Vaishnavas, but Karma Kanda section. So Brahmanas, and even Vaishnavas, for example, we have the sacrificial fire, but some ants or something are dying in the fire. When we are cooking for the Lord, there are some insects, maybe they may die, or ant or microbes, germs, they may die. So all this killing is there. So now no work is without fault. So even if one is a Brahmana, he has to perform sacrifice in which animal killing is necessary. Similarly, a Kshatriya, however pious he may be, has to fight enemies, which is not a very palatable thing to do. Killing is not so good, but he cannot avoid it, as Prabhupada said here. Similarly, a merchant, however pious he may be, he must sometimes hide his profit to stay in business, or he may sometimes have to do business on the black market. These things are necessary, one cannot avoid them. Similarly, even though a man is a Shudra serving a bad master, he has to carry out the order of the master, even though it should not be done. So he is forced to do something. So despite these flaws, one should continue to carry out his prescribed duties, for they are born out of his own nature. A very nice example is given herein. Although fire is pure, still there is smoke. Yet smoke does not make the fire impure. Even though there is smoke in the fire, fire is still considered to be the purest of all elements. If one prefers to give up the work of a Kshatriya and take up the occupation of a Brahmana, he is not assured that in the occupation of a Brahmana there are no unpleasant duties. This is the point. So if we give up one thing because it's impure, it's not guaranteed that the other thing will be pure. One may then conclude that in the material world, no one can be completely free from the contamination of material nature. This example of fire and smoke is very appropriate in this connection. When in winter time one takes a stone from the fire, sometimes smoke disturbs the eyes and other parts of the body, but still one must make use of the fire despite disturbing conditions. Similarly, one should not give up his natural occupation because there are some disturbing elements. Rather, one should be determined to serve the Supreme Lord by his occupational duty in Krishna consciousness. That is the perfectional point. When a particular type of occupation is performed for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, all the defects in that particular occupation are purified. what is that? Om apavitra pavitro va sarvavastham gatopi va yasmaret pundarikaksham sabahya abhyantara suchihi. Everything outside and inside becomes purified just by remembering Krishna. All the, everything has a fault. Nothing is without fault here in this material world. So, even so-called vegetarians and vegans, they say, they're also full of fault, because the plants, they're also killing in the plants. There are also, hurting the plants. As long as one eats rice, the harvest is done, the plants are killed there, and sometimes the roots, potatoes and carrots and beetroots, they are roots, they are taken out. So, that is also life, not only animals. So, there is fault everywhere, and as long as one does not eat prasadam, he is always eating sin. Any life we take, we have to pay for it. And we can't remain without eating. Jivo jivasya jivanam. One living entity has to eat another. So, the moment we eat, we are already bound up by karma. Just by eating. Just forget about anything else. Just by eating, we are bound up by karma. So, how are we going to come out of this faulty nature? Everything offered to the Lord, then it becomes faultless. So, when a particular type of occupation is performed for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, all the defects in that particular occupation are purified. When the results of work are purified, when connected with devotional service, one becomes perfect in seeing the self within, and that is self-realization. So these were the essence of the Vyadha Gita. So even though one is engaged in, but we have information, what is the background of this Dharma Vyadha, this righteous so-called butcher. You see, I think it is in, where was it? I think in that itself there is a 11-12. You see Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 11, chapter 12, verses 3 to 6. You see this? Satsangena hi daiteya yatu dhana mrgah khagah gandharvapsaraso nagah siddhascharana guhyakah vidyadhara manusheshu vaishyah shudrah striyontyajah rajastamah prakritayas tasmin yuge yuge bahavo matpadam praptas tvashtra कायाधवादयः वृषपर्वा बलिर्बाणो मयश्चाथ विभीषणः सुग्रीवो हनुमान् ऋक्षो गजो गृध्रो वणिक्पथः व्याधः व्याधः कुब्जा व्रजे गोप्यो यज्ञपत्न्यस्तथा परे. In every yuga, many living entities entangled in the modes of passion and ignorance gained the association of my devotees. See, in every yuga, many living entities entangled in the modes of passion and ignorance gained the association of my devotees. Thus, such living entities such as the Daityas, Rakshasas, birds, beasts, Gandharvas, Apsaras, Nagas, Siddhas, Charanas, Guhyakas and Vidyadharas, as well as such lower class human beings such as Vaishyas, Shudras, women and others, were able to achieve my supreme abode. Vritasura, Prahlad Maharaj and others like them also achieved my abode by association with my devotees. Vritasura, Prahlad Maharaj, they are all demons, supposed to be, demonic families. As did personalities such as Vrishaparva, Bali Maharaj, Banasura, Maya, Vibhishana, Sugriva. Vibhishan was in the demonic family as well. Sugriva is a monkey, Hanuman, monkey, Jambavan, considered a bear, sometimes a monkey, sometimes like that. So, and then Gajendra, Jatayu, Tuladhara, Dharmavyadha, Kubja, the gopis in Vrindavan and the wives of the Brahmanas who were performing sacrifices. So this Dharmavyadha, the reference is here. So he also associated with saintly people. So that's why he was actually enlightened, and he would have definitely given up his Vyadha duties. So in the purport to this, we have some information. The importance of association with devotees is illustrated in the story of Dharmavyadha, the non-violent hunter, as described in the Varaha Puran. In a previous life, he somehow became a Brahma Rakshasa or Brahmana ghost, but was eventually saved. In a previous Kali Yuga, he had the association of a Vaishnava king named Vasu. Then it goes on to the description of Lady Kubja. So basically, he associated with the devotee and definitely was saved from his Brahma Rakshasa. Brahma Rakshasa is the most horrible type of ghost, very powerful ghost. That means who was a Brahmana before, he knows all the mantras and all, has some powers, and then but for some sinful action he becomes a ghost. Such ghosts are very powerful, Brahma Rakshasa. So he was that before, and then he was delivered by the association of a Vaishnava king named Vasu. So we have another of such Dharma Vyadha or a hunter who is a Mrigari. We have the story of Mrigari the hunter, who was also Dharma Vyadha. That means he was a Vyadha but then became a Dharmi. He was a devotee later on. So definitely with the association of Vaishnava, that Dharma Vyadha also would have changed from his butcher thing to devotee. So therefore he could even instruct the Brahmin sannyasi. So this is how we have to understand. Therefore it is said in the 7, 9, 10 that we saw, Viprad Vishadguna Yutadar Avindanabha, this verse that we have seen a while ago. If a Brahmana has all 12 of the Brahmanical qualifications as they are stated in the book called Sanat Sujata, but is not a devotee and is averse to the lotus feet of the Lord, he is certainly lower than a devotee who is a dog eater but who has dedicated everything, mind, body and activities, wealth and life to the Supreme Lord. How? First of all, he is certainly lower than a devotee who is a dog eater. How can a devotee be a dog eater? That means definitely he would have risen above the dog eating. He would have been born in a dog eating family, but then he would have risen from that. So similarly, this person would have been born in the Vyadha family, hunter family, or a butcher or hunter. And of course, those days they were not like having slaughterhouses. It was a hunter. So basically, so this hunter would have been born in the hunter family, but then again he became a Vaishnava definitely. So that's what it signifies. So he's certainly lower than a devotee who is a dog eater but who has dedicated everything, mind, body, activities, wealth and life to the Supreme Lord. Such a devotee is better than such a Brahmana because the devotee can purify his whole family, whereas a so-called Brahmana in a position of false prestige cannot purify even himself. See, even though born in a dog eating family, he can purify his entire family and he can purify whomever he meets. Nichadapi uttamam jnanam. We have to take great knowledge even if it comes from a so-called nicham. Nichadapi uttamam jnanam. If it comes from a person who is a low-born, but if he is enlightened in Vaishnava philosophy, Jai Krishna Tattvaveta, Shai Guru Hai, Kiba Vipra, Kibanyasi, Shudra Kenanoy. So it doesn't matter where he comes from, but if he is enlightened in Krishna Tattvaveta, means in the science of Krishna consciousness, he has to be accepted as Guru. So therefore this sannyasi, when he took that Dharma Vyadha's instructions, he actually benefited from that. So he could advise even a Brahman sannyasi. So that is the thing, that when one is elevated with knowledge, yes, he will become self-realized. He can purify anybody who comes in contact with him. That is the whole moral of that story. So there is reference in the Varaha Puran which is quoted in that purport to that 11, 12, 3 through 6, that verse there. Alright, that was a long answer again. I don't know how far we're going to go like that. Try to be quick, but actually these stories had to be given sufficient explanation because it can be misused, misrepresented. Actually they have been misrepresented already, because I have seen some other explanations of Vyadha Gita. They say that it is better to be a even so-called sinful person in this world rather than a person who stopped all activities and does not do his duty and so-called Brahmin and chanting mantras. It is better to be even a butcher, doing his duty and helping others rather than being a Brahmana just thinking of his own purification by chanting mantras. That was the purport that they drew from this story, but completely nonsense. It's not in accordance with the Shastra. So we have to understand it in the proper context, and therefore that was a good question, and we did some reading, and then by Prabhupada's mercy this came out. Next. Okay, we'll try to go as fast as possible, hopefully. Next, Vishnu Teja's next question. Prabhu, is illicit sex not sinful in the heavenly planets? Well, it is. But it is much more. For example, Indra, he had an affair with moon god's wife Tara. So for that he was also cursed. So these things happen. So, but it's not valid. So their definition of legitimate sex, there is more facility for sex basically in the heavenly planets, and they don't immediately produce children. Here they have to take contraception and all the abortion and all these sinful activities, but there no. So therefore there are heavenly society girls who are still powerful, although they are so-called prostitutes. So the definition of you know illicit sex, it is very rigid here. It's a little more different there on the heavenly planets, but that does not mean that illicit sex is okay in the heavenly planets. No, it's not like that exactly. But there's more facility for sex. That much is there. In fact, there are some references of that. Prabhupada even mentioned that the women of the heavenly planets, their bodies are very beautiful, of course. No match on the earth at all. Next, they become warm in cold temperature, and they become very cool in warm temperatures. So every man would want to embrace such a woman. So in that way, the facility for sense gratification in the heavenly planets is so much. That's why it's a big distraction. Even heavenly people, they say that the life on earth is much better because there's not as much distraction in the matter of sense gratification, and one can easily practice Krishna consciousness without much distraction. But when there's so much distraction of sense gratification, it's very hard. We see, I mean, in this world, I mean, in today's day and age, there's so much facility for sense gratification in the form of these gadgets and all kinds of apps and free intermixing between boys and girls, and therefore the spiritual quotient of people is very low. I mean, they're not interested in spiritual life, hardly, and there's so much rampant sense gratification in the form of sinful activities, meat eating, illicit sex, gambling, intoxication. They have absolutely no time and no inclination to turn to spiritual life. So this is what happens. Bhogaishwarya prasaktanam taya pahrita chetasam vyavasayatmaka buddhi samadho na vidhiyate. 2.44. In the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence, and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination for devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. So although demigods are all devotees, but it's very hard for them to become pure devotees. There's every chance they can become, if they can tolerate all that attraction of sense gratification and they can stay away from it, they can become pure devotees, not that they cannot. Apratihata, there's no condition that can check, but because of our conditioned nature, we usually are attracted to our conditioned nature, and not really to this devotional service. The starting point, once one gets started on this and is established in devotional service, then he can give up anything, and then there's no condition that can stop it. But if one has not taken up to devotional service strongly, then yes, his progress can be checked with when he is materially attached. That's what usually happens in the heavenly planets. Vishnu Teja's next question. Do we refer to all forms of Godhead as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or only Krishna? All forms. Many times Prabhupada mentioned to many incarnations, refer to them as Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vishnu Tattva, they're all Vishnu Tattva, they're all the same. Next question. Prabhu, do people who have to go to the heavenly planets also have to go through the court of Yamaraj? Sorry. No, those who go to heavenly planets, they don't go to Yamaraj. But those who go to hellish planets, yeah, they will go through Yamaraj. Actually, we will see some verses regarding this. I think it's in the, let's see. We'll read this description of a few verses in the 30th chapter of the 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So this describes the pathetic way in which a usual human being leaves his body in this world. Now let's see this, what happens. So he tries to maintain his family members, and sometimes he begs, borrows, or steals to maintain them. He gives his heart and senses to a woman who falsely charms him with Maya. He enjoys solitary embraces and talking with her, and he's enchanted by the sweet words of the small children. The attached householder remains in his family life, which is full of diplomacy and politics, always spreading miseries and controlled by acts of sense gratification. He acts just to counteract the reaction of all his miseries, and if he can successfully counteract such miseries, he thinks that he is happy. Then he secures money by committing violence here and there, and although he employs it in the service of his family, he himself eats only a little portion of the food thus purchased, and he goes to hell for those for whom he earned the money in such an irregular way. When he suffers reverses in his occupation, he tries again and again to improve himself, but when he is baffled in all attempts and is ruined, he accepts money from others because of excessive greed. Thus, the unfortunate man, unsuccessful in maintaining his family members, is bereft of all beauty. He always thinks of his failure, grieving very deeply. So, as one becomes older, these feelings will intensify. Seeing him unable to support them, his wife and others do not treat him with the same respect as before, even as miserly farmers do not accord the same treatment to their old and worn out oxen. The foolish family man does not become averse to family life, although he is maintained by them whom he once maintained. Deformed by the influence of old age, he prepares himself to meet ultimate death. Thus he remains, these are quite harsh words, so please bear with them. Thus he remains at home just like a pet dog and eats whatever is so negligently given to him. Afflicted with many illnesses such as dyspepsia and loss of appetite, he eats only very small morsels of food and he becomes an invalid who cannot work anymore. In that diseased condition, one's eyes bulge due to the pressure of air from within and his glands become congested with mucus. He has difficulty breathing, and upon exhaling and inhaling, he produces a sound like ghura ghura, a rattling within the throat. In this way, he comes under the clutches of death and lies down, surrounded by lamenting friends and relatives, and although he wants to speak with them, he no longer can because he is under the influence of time. Thus, the man who engaged with uncontrolled senses in maintaining a family dies in great grief, seeing his relatives crying. He dies most pathetically in great pain and without consciousness. At death, he sees the messengers of the Lord of death come before him, their eyes full of wrath, and in great fear he passes stool and urine. This is what happens to a dying man. He sees the Yamadutas. As a criminal is arrested for punishment by the constables of the state, a person engaged in criminal sense gratification is similarly arrested by the Yamadutas, who bind him by the neck with strong rope and cover his subtle body so that he may undergo severe punishment. So what was his crime? His crime was that he maintained his family members without any spiritual life. This is the end of a person who just is family conscious. While carried by the constables of Yamaraj, he is overwhelmed and trembles in their hands. While passing on the road, he is bitten by dogs and he can remember the sinful activities of his life. He is thus terribly distressed. The path after death is not very rosy, and almost all people in Kali Yuga are going to go this way, because what piety is there in people's life today? They're doing all sorts of sinful activities. So while passing on the road, he is bitten by dogs and he can remember the sinful activities of his life. He is thus terribly distressed. Under the scorching sun, the criminal has to pass through roads of hot sand with forest fires on both sides. He is whipped on the back by the constables because of his inability to walk, and he is afflicted by hunger and thirst, but unfortunately there is no drinking water, no shelter, and no place for rest on the road. While passing on that road to the abode of Yamaraj, he falls down in fatigue and sometimes he becomes unconscious, but he is forced to rise again. In this way, he is very quickly brought to the presence of Yamaraj. Thus, he has to pass 99,000 yojanas within 2 or 3 moments. This is how fast he moves actually. 99,000 yojanas. You know what is yojana? 1 yojana is 8 miles. And 99,008, which is 792,000 miles in 2 or 3 moments. This is how fast he is taken. and then he is at once engaged in the torturous punishment which he is destined to suffer. Although it is 2 or 3 moments, he feels it like many thousands of years. In another place it is said that he will be taken to the abode of hell in 9 seconds, but he feels that as like 9,000 or 90,000 or 9 million years, like that. But actually it's taken in 9 seconds. So he is placed in the midst of burning pieces of wood and his limbs are set on fire. In some cases he is made to eat his own flesh or have it eaten by others. You know what is all this for? Just for maintaining a family. He is punished like this for maintaining a family. In this world, maintaining a family is considered a good thing. But you see, if one is devoid of Krishna consciousness, this is very painful, His entrails, that means his intestines, are pulled out by the hounds and vultures of hell, even though he is still alive to see it. He is still alive and he has to see the intestines taken out from his body. That means he is given a body in which he will suffer, but he will not die very quickly at all. He will suffer a lot. He will feel all the pain, but he will not die. So, and he is subjected to torment by serpents, scorpions, gnats, and other creatures that bite him. Next, his limbs are lopped off and torn asunder by elephants. He is hurled down from hilltops, and he is also held captive either in water or in a cave. Men and women whose lives were built upon indulgence in illicit sex life are put into many kinds of miserable conditions in the hells known as Tamisra, Andha Tamisra and Raurava. Lord Kapila continued, "My dear mother, it is sometimes said that we experience hell or heaven on this planet, for hellish punishments are sometimes visible on this planet also." That's why there is sometimes horrible punishments, horrible deaths, horrible sufferings that one cannot even... one will just tremble and start to shed tears and if you start to think of those sufferings. But these are actually the hellish punishments. These are normal hellish punishments in hell, but sometimes they are seen on this planet also, when the person is so sinful that even before he goes to hell, even in this planet itself, he will face all this turmoil. After leaving this body, the man who maintained himself and his family members by sinful activities suffers a hellish life, and his relatives suffer also. He goes alone to the darkest regions of hell after quitting the present body, and the money he acquired by envying other living entities is the passage money with which he leaves this world. Thus, by the arrangement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the maintainer of kinsmen is put into a hellish condition to suffer for his sinful activities like a man who has lost his wealth. Therefore, a person who is very eager to maintain his family and kinsmen simply by black methods certainly goes to the darkest regions of hell, which is known as Andha Tamisra. Having gone through all the miserable hellish conditions, then, after all, not finished, and having passed in a regular order through the lowest forms of animal life prior to human birth, and having thus been purged of his sins, one is reborn again as a human being on this earth. It's what happens. This is how from the court of Yamaraj we come back to the human life again. Millions of years. A little mistake in this life, a few years, a few tens of years we are here in this world. And if we live this life in sinful ways, then we are going to pay a huge price. Millions of years before we can come back to human life. Therefore, we will take to Krishna consciousness immediately. Next, by Bhakta Venkatesh. So, if a scientist or someone who has some degree in science comes to our movement, should we encourage him to try to prove through science the Krishna conscious principle of transmigration and eternal quality of the soul? No. We should teach him the science. We should not encourage him to try to prove through science, because the modern science, the way the modern science is even built, they can't even know. They will never know these things. He should be taught, and then he should be preaching with logic. And Shastric references and the language which the scientist would understand. But basically he has to be taught. And then he will know how to present. Like any devotee, even if he is not a scientist, not a degree holder even, if he reads Prabhupada's books, he can explain to the scientists everything. Just like the Dharma Vyadha, he explained to the so-called Brahmin. He's so-called educated, but he was not self-realized. Whereas this person who was born in a Vyadha family, hunter family, he was self-realized. So that is the thing. So first he has to be taught, and then yes, he has to be empowered to preach. Once he knows, then he can preach. Next question by Bhakta Venkatesh. How does the disagreement between Mayavadi impersonalist philosophers, absolute monists, and the Vaishnavas who propound inconceivable dual and non-dual existence prove that the Vaishnavas are right? It is not that the disagreement between the Mayavadis and Vaishnavas that proves that the Vaishnavas are right, but it's based on the Shastra. Everything has to be based on the Shastra. So the Shastra Praman is what counts. When two lawyers argue, they argue on the constitution, the book. So that has to be the reference point of argument. So anything that is said has to be based on the Shastric statements. So in the Shastra there is no provision for Mayavad philosophy. So as we have seen earlier in the other question, we have seen those Shastric references where Shankaracharya was actually Lord Shiva and he was ordered by Narayana. So with that itself, everything is destroyed. The whole philosophy of Mayavad is put to rest just by that. Of course, Ramanujacharya and Madhvacharya in the Vishishtadvaita and Tattvavada, they have completely dismantled the Mayavad philosophy and destroyed it. Whereas Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he just took the actual meanings. What is that? Lakshana Vritti, and the other one Shuddha Vritti. What is that word that was used? Mukhya Vritti. Yes, Mukhya Vritti. That is the actual meaning of the word, the dictionary meaning of the word. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not give any commentary, but he just used the Mukhya Vritti definition of the words and proved the simple, straightforward truth of the Upanishads and the Vedanta Sutra. Whereas Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was trying to manipulate and give meanings which were not really in the dictionary, just own imaginations, Gauna Vritti or Lakshana Vritti. So that is the difference. Otherwise, everything is pointing to Vedescha Sarvai Rahamaiva Vedyo. Everything is pointing to Krishna. From all Vedas, he is to be understood, but he can only be understood through the mercy of the pure devotee. Without the guidance of a pure devotee, if we just try to read the Vedas, we will be lost. Vedeshu Durlabham. Adurlabham Atma Bhaktao. But even if we are not very learned, just by associating with devotees, we can also learn. Just like all those examples were given in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which included the Dharma Vyadha and the Kubja and Sugriva, Hanuman, although they were not of so-called noble births, sometimes not very high births, but they all became perfect as any other great saint. Like Hanuman, although he was a monkey, but he became as pure as Narad Muni or any other devotee, or Lord Shiva. He could match up with all of them. A pure devotee is a pure devotee. There's no higher and lower pure devotee. A pure devotee is a pure devotee. So once he becomes a pure devotee, it doesn't matter where he came from. That's why it is offense to see Vaishnava Jati Buddhi. That Vaishnava comes from this background, that he's a monkey Vaishnava, he's a demigod Vaishnava, he's a human Vaishnava. No, Vaishnava is Vaishnava. When he's a pure devotee, that's it. Or whether it's a woman Vaishnava, man Vaishnava, Vaishnava is Vaishnava, provided they are in the pure Vaishnava platform. Until then, we have to do our societal duties. Like woman has to be just like that Vyadha Gita. The Brahmin sannyasi went to the woman showed her mystic power by reading his mind, just by the power of her chastity. That was her dharma. As a woman, that was her dharma, and by doing that faithfully and rigidly, she became powerful. So, of course, we have to add the thing of Krishna consciousness as well. So then everything becomes perfect. Next question by again Bhakta Venkatesh. A lot of them are very young people coming into the movement. Do you think they really understand what they are going into when they join the Krishna consciousness movement? Well, my question would be, do they think, the general mass of people, at 2 to 3 years old, they are put in this material educational system in the school, do they know what they are getting into? They don't know. And nor do the parents know. what they are getting into. The whole thing is a trap of illusion. Jadavidhyajatam Mayar Vaibhav. Kaumara Charitragnya, on the other hand, Prahlad Maharaj says we must start this Krishna consciousness at the age of 5 years old. Whether the person understands or not, he has to be introduced to Dharma and Bhagavataniha, because human life is meant for this. And as his intelligence develops, he will understand. See, Prahlad Maharaj is saying, one who is sufficiently intelligent should use the human form of body from the very beginning of life, in other words, from the tender age of childhood. Now, how can a person, one who how can he be sufficiently intelligent to be able to understand that he has to use his human body from the very beginning of life? That means his parents has to be intelligent first of all, to make him start spiritual life from the tender age of childhood. In other words, from the tender age of childhood, to practice the activities of devotional service, giving up all other engagements. That's why I think I wrote an article in our Science of Godhead magazine here. Retirement at 5. I wrote an article like that, titled Retirement at 5. Retirement means to give up all engagements, right? Give up work, retire from work. So, material work has to be stopped, not at 50 or 60 or 70 or 5. And spiritual life has to be taken up. That is the brahmachari life. And if he wants to get into family life, at the age of 20 something, 25 or what, he can get into family life. And then, then there are some material activities. But then because he's already trained in brahmachari life, he will be able to navigate that well in the association of devotees and sadhus and guru. So that way, and then later on he again becomes renounced and then becomes sannyasi, and that's how the advancement is mapped out from the very beginning. Millions of thousands and millions of years we have wasted in animal life. In the human life also you want to wait until you get to the point of 18 or 19 when everything is already spoiled. The guy had already sex with I think a few women already, and then already fixed in so-called modern education kind of science, and does not have faith in God, and he has friends who don't have faith in God and who are addicted to sinful habits. Then how he will come? He should start at 5. In fact, before that, in the womb itself. That's why the pregnant mother and the father and the pregnant mother, even before becoming pregnant, the parents must be very careful to become Krishna conscious nicely, and then try to conceive. And then even while pregnant, the woman must read Krishna story book, like that, or Bhagavad Gita, Krishna books, she should read. And then, after the child is born, again train him up. The training has to go on. Just like Prahlad Maharaj, he became perfect devotee because he was hearing in the womb. How much perfect he became? He came out and he was talking all these things. This verse is from him, Prahlad Maharaj. At 5-year-old boy, he was talking like this. The human body is most rarely achieved, and although temporary like other bodies, it is meaningful because in human life, one can perform devotional service. Even a slight amount of sincere devotional service can give one complete perfection. Even if the child, he takes up devotional service and suppose he gives up, even then there is no loss. Just like Ajamil, when he was a young boy, he was doing everything. But then he got misled by a prostitute, and then at the end of life, that saved him, whatever he did in the early life. So my question would be, the reverse question would be, do the materialistic people know what they are getting into when they are getting into school? Those who are joining up Krishna consciousness, whether they know it or not, they are coming for the purification. Of course, they won't make a decision without knowing anything. They will know something. But even as a child, they should be given their opportunity. Not that, let him become big, then I will let him decide. Why don't you let him decide whether he wants to go to school or not? Why do you send him to school first? Without him, he is crying moreover. He is crying, I don't want to go. But you are forcing him to send. Forcefully sending him to school. Why is that happening? Why we are not waiting for him to decide whether he wants to go to school or not? But for spiritual life, they will talk like, let him decide. No, I don't want to force Krishna consciousness. Then you want to force material life? There is force always. Which force? Good force or bad force? That is you have to choose. Force is always there. Good force or bad force? That is important. Next. Wow, we are not even halfway through. My goodness. We are already at 15. My goodness. Next question, I guess, again, Bhakta Venkatesh. To read Prabhupada books we should be illiterate. Sorry, we should be literate and not illiterate, right? So you are saying against. So the point is, we are not very favorable towards this material education system. But yes, to read Prabhupada books, we need to be literate and not illiterate. Yeah, so as long as you can read English, and you should know some basic mathematics, of course, to navigate in this world, and general geography, history, and that's it. The rest we can learn from Prabhupada's books. I'm telling you, my English became very fluent because of Prabhupada's books. Honestly, although I studied in English medium school, but speaking about Krishna more and more and more, that's how we became fluent. So it doesn't require a big degree or a PhD. No, as long as you can read Prabhupada's books, you can read English, and you will have the benefit of getting nice knowledge like this. So that much literacy is enough to take us to advancement in Krishna consciousness. Next question by Bhakta Venkatesh again. If any of the questions, this was something else. Okay, next question by Bhakta Vishnu Teja. In an ideal Krishna conscious world, are there still demigod temples? No, but ideal Krishna conscious world is there in Vaikuntha. This material world is not ideal. So people of all kinds of people are there. So there will be demigod worship and there will be everything. Ideal world is Vaikuntha, where there is no demigod worship. So that is the ideal world. And because this is not the ideal world, then there is so many kinds of worship according to their modes: goodness, passion, ignorance. Next question by Bhakta Vishnu Teja. After being in the hellish planet, do people who have some pious credits get to go to the heavenly planets? Or do their pious credits just serve as a way to get to a better result in their fruitive future earthly body? As you've seen, we already seen through that whole transmigration of the soul. From hellish planets, he will go through the animal life first, and progressively, one by one, after millions of years, he will come back again to the human birth. So that's the way. Next question by Bhakta Subramanian, K.S. Subramanian. Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. My obeisances to you as well. Prabhu, how can we improve the quality of our chanting? Practically, how can we concentrate on the Mahamantra when we chant? Because when I chant, I tend to get distracted by some thoughts. Please throw some light on the concept of chanting attentively. So Prabhupada said, basically when we chant, we should hear. We should hear when we chant. That's the basic principle of chanting. And it is a prayer. Krishna, please engage me in your service. I'm always engaged in Maya's service. So we have to always chant in that prayerful mood. And to be in that mood, one must read Prabhupada's books and attend classes like this, what you are attending now, and keep in touch with that philosophy, keep in touch with this thinking always. Then when we chant also, if we are too much embroiled with materialistic thoughts, then we won't have the proper mood when chanting also. So this is text from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, text 26. Yato yato nischalati manas chanchalamassthiram tatastato niyamyaitad atmanyeva vasham nayet. From wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. So basically the mind will go so many ways even when we are chanting. So there is offensive chanting, inattentive chanting. So we have to bring back the mind again. Okay, let me hear. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So you have to hear what we are chanting. So to focus back on the words again. So that's the whole point. It just takes practice to come to the stage of, as we chant more and more, try to bring it back each time. The gaps between, the attentive chanting, that means the inattentive chanting part will reduce and come to a point where there will be no more gaps when one is chanting. That is called Kirtaniya Sada Hari. That takes a while, so we have to just regularly chant. No matter what, we just should chant. The perfection is achieved just by chanting itself. I think we have done one Wisdom Bite video. I think today or yesterday we have released that. No matter what, chant. So Sundar Prabhu was explaining very nicely that part. Next question by Bhakta Virendra. And okay, some other tips for chanting. Best to chant in the morning. Wake up early. So sleep early, wake up early, and finish all the rounds in the morning itself. Of course, after taking bath, wake up, immediately take bath, brush teeth, evacuate, take bath, start chanting, and finish as much as possible. If you can wake up like 3:30, 4, then finish chanting, and then you can start your day. If you cannot, then you can still chant. Basically, over the whole day you have to chant, but the concentration is more in the morning Brahma Muhurta time where there's no other distraction. Just chanting and nothing else. You don't have to check your notifications. Nobody's going to send you anything, and like that. So that is the best way. Otherwise, the whole day you have so many things to do. So, but still, you can of course take some time off and start to chant again. It's not that you finish your chanting is finished and done for good. No. If you have time, we can always chant. 16 rounds is minimum. It's not maximum. So we can always chant more if you want. Next question by Bhakta Virendra. What is the name of book publishing of ISKM? Does ISKM do book distribution of books published by ISKCON BBT, Bhaktivedanta Book Trust? Okay, we don't have a publishing company on our name, but so how do we distribute books? So in English, some titles are available in the Krishna Books Incorporated, which print the original books, and the rest we get from BBT. And for other languages than English, we have to get from BBT, and so we get like that. Next question by Vishnu Teja. How many brahmacharis are in the Singapore temple? So how does it matter? How does it matter in your spiritual life? So anyway, we have Sundar Prabhu, who is the Vanaprastha, and ourselves, we are brahmachari, and that's about it. But actually, brahmacharati iti brahmachari. So even when one has a wife, but still he is brahmachariti means one who is walking the spiritual path. So he is a brahmachari. So even if one has a faithful wife, nice wife, if he is still interested in Krishna consciousness and fully, duty bound in Krishna consciousness and executing all his duties, he is also considered a brahmachari. But if you want to talk about strictly that ashram, brahmachari ashram, I'm a loner here. So you're all more than welcome to join. We need more saffron. This is becoming quite a endangered species as of now. So we need more brahmacharis, more saffron. Everybody is getting bleached. We had a few. We went to Grihastha ashram. Not a fall down. Grihastha ashram is ashram. So they have moved on to Grihastha ashram. We had actually at one point in time all saffron. Prabhu was saffron, Mahaprabhu was saffron, we were saffron, my brother was here, Prahlad was here. Prahlad Prabhu was not in saffron though at that time. And then we had Chaitanya Lila, Sankarshan, who else? We had Subal Prabhu, we had Pavanesh Prabhu, all brahmacharis, so many of us. At one point, almost 10, now 1. So please join. Next question by Bhakta Virendra. Have all our immediate family relationships, be it mother, father, sister, brother, relatives, friends we have, meet us by chance in this life, or do we have some karmic bond with them from previous lives? How do we meet our spiritual master in this life who is responsible to free us from material bondage? Okay, there are two questions. So first question is, how do we meet our people in this life? So I don't remember the verse number, but the example is given just like the straws in a river. They come together as the river flows, in meanders through the land, and some straws of grass, they come together and sometimes they're separated, and like that we just come and separate. And according to sometimes it is a karmic bond. Sometimes it is said that an enemy in a previous life comes as a troublesome child in this life to give us pain or for us to pay back to that enemy. So in that way it happens. And sometimes it is just out of just like we have seen just now the references where the person goes to hell and he goes to the animal life and then slowly climbs up all the way to human life. So there's no exactly that he meets the same people again and again and again. No, it does not work like that. Sometimes it happens, but not every time. And next, how do we meet our spiritual master in this life who is responsible to free us from material bondage? That happens when one is fortunate. A Brahmanda Brahmita Kono Bhagyavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasada Pai Bhakti Lata Bij. So by fortune, if one is absolutely fortunate, then he will gain the association of a bona fide spiritual master and get the seed of bhakti. For that, one has to be having a little bit of sincerity of purpose. Not a little bit, quite some amount of it. So if he is sincerely searching, then Krishna as Paramatma, he will detect that and then he will show us the bona fide spiritual master. But if one wants some spiritual life but he is not willing to take up the real path, and if he has his own desires camouflaged as devotional service, then he is sent to some cheaters and he will get cheated usually. And in Kali Yuga there are so many of them. So if we are sincere, yes, we will be shown the bona fide spiritual master. Okay, next question by Bhakti Najanya. How a devotee can win a debate if the opponent is an atheist who continuously adopting denialism to win his or her part? Can a first class devotee can defeat him by removing the illusion to thought? Who will win if a debate happens between illusion free devotee and a well known materialistic debater or orator? An atheist is always defeated. He is never winner. And a first class devotee can always defeat an atheist. But whether the atheist wants to accept defeat or not, or whether he still wants to masquerade as still as the winner. So nowadays people hardly accept defeat when they're defeated. Like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he was an atheist basically, Mayavadi. But when he was defeated, he accepted that defeat. Although he was Sarvabhauma, he defeated everybody else in argument until then. But first time he was defeated by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and he accepted defeat. Genuinely he accepted defeat, honestly. But nowadays they don't really accept defeat. So it is not upon the pure devotees. It also depends upon the hearer. The Prabhupada said, the speaker must be potent and the listener must be receptive. Then the proper transmission of transcendental knowledge will happen. Just like when a man is potent and when a woman is fertile, then there will be conception immediately when there is union. So like that, proper transmission of spiritual knowledge can happen between a bona fide spiritual master and a bona fide disciple. So just having a bona fide spiritual master is not enough, because if I don't follow the instructions, I will not gain anything from the association. On the other hand, if the disciple is bona fide and the spiritual master is not, then also there is no fruit. That's why such a spiritual master has to be rejected, as shown by Bali Maharaj and as evinced by Sanatana Goswami as well in the Hari Bhakti Vilas. So like that. So basically, it depends on both. If a person is in the challenging spirit, he will never be Naham Prakasha Sarvasya. Krishna will not reveal himself, and a genuine preacher will actually avoid him. He doesn't waste his time. If he is interested in learning something, then there is any use of debate or some argument or some discussion. Next question by Bhakti Najanya. Can you explain the path of the soul if it is eligible to go to Vaikuntha planets? Dhruv Maharaj went, and there is explained that as one goes to the spiritual world, he will be shown all the heavenly planets on the way. And if he has any attraction for any of the heavenly planets or any feature of those heavenly planets, he will be dropped off on that planet. Okay, here is you go here and take birth. So basically one has to be completely devoid of any attraction for the material world or any of the yogic siddhis, because in the higher heavenly planets they have so many yogic siddhis, and if one gets attracted on the way back to Godhead, if he gets attracted to those, he will have to go there. So anyway, it's can you explain the path of the soul if it is eligible to go to Vaikuntha planets? Well, it's a long. As long as we take to the path, that's more important at this point. So basically, first Shraddha, Adav Shraddha, Tato Sadhu Sangha, then Bhajana Kriya, then Anartha Nivritti, then Nishtha, Ruchi, Asakti, Bhava, Prema. So these are the stages of elevation. So first there is faith, then there is association with devotees, then there is engagement in devotional service, initiation and engagement in devotional service, and then there is um, purging of anartha, that means unwanted things in the heart, the contaminations on the heart. Then there is steady devotional service, then there is taste for devotional service, then there is asakti, that means there is natural spontaneous attraction for Krishna, and that intensifies into bhava, which is intense attachment. That is the best way, it can be translated. or emotional ecstasy. And then there is finally prema, which is love, pure love of Godhead. So when one is in pure love of Godhead, then he's as good as, he's already has reached Godhead, the kingdom of God, because even when he's on this earth, he is completely in the kingdom of God. Next question by Bhakti Rajanya again. Can you explain most common ways through which attack of illusion happens to stunt the growth of Krishna consciousness? How one devotee be able to discriminate the test of devotion? Well, there are innumerable ways one will be tested in the course of his progress, and how many can I enumerate? Because the attraction to women, the attraction to material wealth, the attraction to all this, these are the weeds. Actually, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains this whole thing in the 19th chapter of the Madhya Leela. So you can go and read that for further references. I think I can't go through all that at this point, but I plan to do a class especially on that one, because it's quite an important topic. And if you see there, I'll just show you one verse. So this is Madhya 19.159. Nishiddhachar kutinati jivahimsana labha puja pratisthadi yat upashakha gan. Some unnecessary creepers growing with the bhakti creeper are the creepers of behavior unacceptable for those trying to attain perfection: diplomatic behavior, animal killing, mundane profiteering, mundane adoration, and mundane importance. All these are unwanted creepers. So these things, when we see, then we should know, oh, this is Maya attacking. So I don't know if we can go through these few verses. Let's see. So this is the 19th chapter, Madhya Leela of Chaitanya Charitamrita. So this is according to their karma, all living entities are wandering throughout the entire universe. Some of them are being elevated to the upper planetary systems, and some are going down into the lower planetary systems. Out of many millions of wandering living entities, one who is very fortunate gets an opportunity to associate with the bona fide spiritual master by the grace of Krishna. By the mercy of both Krishna and the spiritual master, such a person receives the seed of the creeper of devotional service. When a person receives the seed of devotional service, he should take care of it by becoming a gardener and sowing the seed in his heart. If he waters the seed gradually by the process of Shravan and Kirtan, hearing and chanting, the seed will begin to sprout. As one waters the Bhaktilata bij, the seed sprouts, and the creeper gradually grows to the point where it penetrates the walls of this universe and goes beyond the Viraja river lying between the spiritual world and the material world. It attains Brahmaloka, the Brahman effulgence, and penetrating through that stratum, it reaches the spiritual sky and the supreme planet Goloka Vrindavan. Being situated in one's heart and being watered by Shravan Kirtan, the Bhakti creeper grows more and more. In this way, it attains the shelter of the desired tree of the lotus feet of Krishna, who is eternally situated in the planet known as Goloka Vrindavan, in the topmost region of the spiritual sky. This is how the creeper will grow. The creeper greatly expands in the Goloka Vrindavan planet, and there it produces the fruit of love for Krishna. Although remaining in the material world, the gardener regularly sprinkles the creeper with the water of hearing and chanting. That means, you see, even when the fruit of love for Krishna is already fructified, still the gardener regularly sprinkles the creeper with the watering of hearing and chanting. Means his hearing and chanting, hearing about Krishna and chanting his holy name should always be done, even in the perfected stage. If the devotee commits an offense at the feet of a Vaishnava while cultivating the creeper of devotional service in the material world, his offense is compared to a mad elephant that uproots the creeper and breaks it. In this way, the leaves of the creeper are dried up. If one offends Vaishnavas, devotees, then it's compared to a mad elephant offense which uproots the creeper and breaks it. In this way, the leaves of the creeper are dried up. So one feels devotional life is very dry, no enthusiasm, no nothing. It means some Vaishnava offense is being committed. The gardener must defend the creeper by fencing it all around so that the powerful elephant of offenses may not enter. Some unwanted creepers, such as the creepers of desires for material enjoyment and liberation from the material world, grow along with the creeper of devotional service. The varieties of such unwanted creepers are unlimited. Unlimited weeds. The desire for material enjoyment is a weed. The desire for liberation from the material world is also a weed. And then some unnecessary creepers growing with the bhakti creeper are the creepers of behavior unacceptable for those trying to attain perfection, diplomatic behavior, animal killing, mundane profiteering, mundane adoration, and mundane importance. All these are unwanted creepers. If one does not distinguish between the bhakti creeper and the other creepers, the sprinkling of water is misused because the other creepers are nourished while the bhakti creeper is curtailed. So, if you are sprinkling if we are not cutting out the weeds of all these illicit desires, then if by chanting, even if still one continues chanting and hearing, but he is not careful of stopping his diplomatic behavior, jiva himsana, giving pain to others, not just animal killing only, any kind of, if one does not preach, actually he is committing himsa, violence, because he is allowing that person to suffer. And if one gives deliberate pain, and especially devotees and also others, all this so-called and mundane adoration, mundane importance, just wanting all that is all weeds. So even while doing that, if one chants and hears, he will just feed those weeds and not the bhakti creeper. So the sprinkling of water is misused. So if the gardener keeps on watering and watering, if the weeds are growing, if he does not uproot the weeds, and if he still keeps on watering and watering and watering, what happens? The weeds will grow bigger and outgrow the creeper. That's what will happen. So we have to be careful to weed out all these unnecessary anarthas. As soon as an intelligent devotee sees an unwanted creeper growing beside the original creeper, he must cut it down instantly. Then the real creeper, the Bhaktilata, grows nicely, returns home back to Godhead and seeks shelter under the lotus feet of Krishna. And here I want to add a point that an intelligent devotee must cut down the weed instantly. And sometimes if the devotee is not competent enough, another devotee by way of chastisement will cut that creeper or that weed. But one must take it as a benediction. Oh, that devotee, although he has chastised me for good, because he has cut down the weed and he is enabling my bhakti creeper to grow. So therefore, if a devotee is not as intelligent, here it is said, as soon as an intelligent devotee sees an unwanted creeper. So if the devotee is still kanishta and not able to distinguish what is a creeper and what is a weed, then sometimes the devotees help such a devotee in removing the weeds, and we have to take those as blessings, although it may be a little bit harsh. It's blessings. So when the fruit of devotional service becomes ripe and falls down, the gardener tastes the fruit and thus takes advantage of the creeper and reaches the desired tree of the lotus feet of Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan. There the devotee serves the lotus feet of the Lord, which are compared to a wish-fulfilling tree. With great bliss he tastes the juice of the fruit of love of Godhead and becomes eternally happy. To taste the fruit of devotional service in Goloka Vrindavan is the highest perfection of life, and in the presence of such perfection, the four material perfections, religion, economic development, and sense gratification and liberation, are very insignificant achievements. So anyway, this goes on to another topic. So that's the journey of a person going to Vaikuntha. Next question, how chastisement helps the devotee to uplift consciousness? I think we have just described that. So we'll go to the next one. Dasokadas. Please tell the Ritvik theory in relationship with ISKM and Give Gita. No, we practice, it's not a Ritvik theory, it is a Ritvik order by Prabhupada, and if you want, what is the relationship? Please tell the Ritvik theory in relationship with ISKM and Give Gita. I have heard of Give Gita. They also practice Ritvik system. So well and good. Let them practice. And we have been practicing. At ISKM since many years. So if in the future it comes to a point where we can cooperate, that will be very well. That will be the most ideal. So let's see how it all pans out. We'll give it time. We're not rushing into things. We have tried some kind of cooperations before with other Ritvik groups around the world. Sometimes some have been successful, some have not been so successful. So it is a work in progress, and at this point we are just expanding as ISKM. And if it comes to a point where we can collaborate with Give Gita, and if all works out well and there's nice Vaishnava dealings between everybody, most definitely we can cooperate. So sometimes we have seen in the name of Prabhupada Anugas, they don't have proper Vaishnava behavior sometimes. So that's when things become difficult for cooperation. But if everybody works humbly and takes authority from senior devotees, instead of just considering themselves senior without doing much, they have to take advice and guidance and work in cooperation and in friendly relation with Vaishnavas. Basically, it's not just about like master and slave or something, but it has to be genuine cooperation with Prabhupada in the center and nice Vaishnava dealings, and that will create a healthy environment. That's what we're looking for, and if that comes out, then we are ready to cooperate with anyone. In fact, honestly telling you, we spent more than $250,000 over the last 7 to 8 years trying to forge relationships between various Ritvik groups. We have traveled, we have spent a lot of money. So all that has been our endeavor all throughout. So sometimes we did not receive the same reciprocation from them, so it's difficult to cooperate like that. So, but we have also seen success, yes, and that's how we are in many countries at this point. And we welcome all devotees to join this endeavor and cooperate fully, and that's what we are looking for. So for now, we will work with devotees who want to work under the ISKM banner and push on the movement for Prabhupada. That's how we are working on it at the moment. Next question. If polygamy was perfectly acceptable in Vedic culture, why did Lord Ram, exemplifying the behavior of an ideal human being, decide to do Ekapatni Vrata? Well, his father was having 3 wives. It's perfectly acceptable in Vedic culture because the women basically have to be protected, they have to have a husband, and women are generally more in number than the men, and all women must get married. So therefore, for their protection, polygamy is allowed. It's not just for sense gratification. So Lord Ramchandra, took the Ekapatni Vrata because generally people cannot maintain more than one wife. Exalted people, they can maintain. And maintain means not just maintaining them with food and water, and spiritually we must elevate them. So that is the main thing. So the protection is not just material protection, the spiritual protection. So a person has to be sufficiently advanced. So therefore we have examples of great sages like even Kashyapa Muni and all. They had he had 13 wives. So there are many instances like that when polygamy was allowed. But then to show to the general mass of people, Lord Ramachandra accepted Ekapatni Vrata. But it is not that he cannot accept. He accepted in the form of Krishna. He accepted 16,108 wives. And even his father Vasudev had 16 wives, and like that. So anyway, in Kali Yuga, there is no way, either legally or even logically, that one can maintain more than one wife. Even one wife is quite difficult, to be very honest. That's why it is said, a man is considered an expert if he can maintain a family in Kali Yuga. That's one of the symptoms of Kali Yuga. Previously, anybody could maintain a family, no problem. But now, maintaining a family is a big tapasya in itself. So, that's Kali Yuga. Can you give further examples of Maryada Vyatikrama? Further examples. So the ones Romaharshan Sutta, he did not get up when Balram came. Everybody in the audience, they got up, but Romaharshan Sutta, he did not get up and Balram killed him. he he imbued a straw and just threw at him and killed him with a straw, because he did not respect the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because he was sitting as a speaker. So usually a speaker doesn't get up, but when the Supreme Lord is there, he has to get up, right? So but he did not get up, so that was Maryada Vyatikrama. And when you said further examples, that means what was the first example are you referring to? Like Uddhava, he did not do Maryada Vyatikrama because he gave the chance for Vidura to go to a senior personality like Maitreya Muni, and that's where he held the proper Maryada. So basically, devotee should exhibit Maryada, and that's the ornament of a devotee. A real devotee, the real ornament of a devotee is his behavior. That is explained in the Antya-lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Anyway, we'll go to the next verse. By Bhakta Virendra. Pitraloka presided by Aryama and hellish planets Narakaloka presided by Yama are near to each other. Then do the ancestors are first meted out punishment in hellish planet and then transferred to Pitraloka? No. When they go to Pitraloka, it is actually one of the heavenly planets, although it is there in the lower regions of the universe. It is still one of the, they still enjoy heavenly pleasures, and they don't have to go to Yamaraj before going there. They go after death, they directly go there, and as long as the Shraddha is offered, they will be there. And after that, they will fall down. Next question by Vijay Sharma Bro. Why is Krishna's color blue? Why? That's his free will. That's his free will. Then next question by Bhakta Nabajit. Hare Krishna Prabhu. If an individual sincerely wanted to offer service to Supreme Almighty and associate with devotees, does really material designation as gender matters? Supreme Lord is not partial to anyone in terms of devotion towards him. Then why in society there is a debate on gender? Why not we can focus on message of God and serve him with love? Yeah, so anybody, Krishna says in the 9.32, Mam hi parthavya pashritya yepi syupapayonayah steyo vaishyasthatha shudras tepi yanti param gatim. O son of Pritha, those who take shelter in me, though they be of lower birth, women, Vaishyas and Shudras can attain the supreme destination. And just now we have seen the other examples in the Bhagavatam, of which the Dharma Vyadha is one of them, and all the monkeys and everybody. So anybody can take shelter of Krishna. So the opportunity for Krishna consciousness is equally open to all. But in societal duties, as we are in the society, everyone is given their respective duty according to their position. So Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras and Stris have their dharma, but it's all equal because it is service to Krishna. But at the same time, they are working in cooperation. Just like 5 fingers are not the same. Each finger has its own use. Each part of our body has its own use. The brain performs one function. The arms perform one function, and the belly performs one function, and the legs perform another function. But all are working towards the same upkeep of the body. So, in that way, they are all equal because everybody is working for the same end, same purpose. So, similarly, whether one is, as long as one has a material body, he has to work in accordance with his particular body because he is still conditioned. We are still conditioned here. We are on the path of liberation. We have taken up the process, but still we have our conditioning. So we have to act according to our social position. At the same time, engage all that we are doing in Krishna's service. According to our modes, we have gotten a certain type of body. According to my more permutation of sattva-gun or rajogun or tamo-gun or mixture of all these gunas, so we get a specific body. So whether that be male or female or not only gender, it can be race, it can be the caste, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. All these designations, Daivi Varnashram means Varnashram Acharavata Purushena Parapuman Vishnur Aradhate Panthan Anya Tattosha Karanam. So it is all meant for the satisfaction of Vishnu. So if Vishnu is satisfied, Okay, for example, I'll give you a Brahmana, for example. He is teaching Vedic literature, and say his wife, she's taking care of the children, her children, and raising them up in Krishna consciousness. And in that way, both are doing service to Krishna, because he is preaching Krishna consciousness, she is training them to be Krishna conscious, and by distributing prasadam, that can be another. And Kshatriyas, they can rule the country, taking advice from Brahmanas. So it's a different duty, but again, everything for the service of Vishnu or Krishna. So that's how it's unity in diversity. It's not that everyone does the same thing. It's about cooperation, not competition. Cooperation. So everybody has to play their role. Suppose if suddenly the legs say, come on, I want to do the head's job. You just cannot. It doesn't fit. So the head has to do the head's job, leg has to do the leg's job, the stomach has to do the stomach's job, and the arms have to do their job. So, and then work in cooperation for the upkeep of the body. Similarly, for the upkeep of the society in spiritual consciousness, everybody must work in cooperation and do their respective duty in relation with Krishna. Then, yes, so it is not that one who is doing the deity worship and one who is sweeping the floor of the temple, it says, oh, this is a Brahmana devotee, a Shudra devotee. No, both are getting the same benefit because both are serving Krishna. So whether it's seemingly materially calculated, it may be higher or lower, for in the eyes of Krishna it is not higher or lower, it is the same. So we should understand that equality and not artificially equalize everything on bodily platform. That is what the modern society is trying to do. They want to, equalize on the basis of gender or on the basis of race. It cannot. Pandita Samadarshana, when he sees the soul in all the beings and not the body. So as soul we are all equal, yes, man, woman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Brahmana or Chandala, whatever. But because of his acquired association with the modes, so he is differently composed of his consciousness. So according to his, that's why it is said, 11 to 36, if you see, Kayena vacha manasendriyairva buddhyatmana va anusruta svabhavat karoti yadyat sakalam parasmai narayanayeti samarpayetat. In accordance with the particular nature one has acquired in conditioned life, whatever one does with body, words, mind, senses, intelligence or purified consciousness, one should offer to the Supreme thinking, this is for the pleasure of Lord Narayana. This is how we should do. That's why there is it's unity in diversity. Okay. Next question by Bhakta Virendra. The duration of life is the least in Kali Yuga amongst all the yugas. People are always disturbed, distressed and hankering due to material miseries. In such case, chanting of the holy names is the greatest medicine to attain salvation and love of Godhead. Even the demigods cannot attain spiritual world as like humans having less lifespan. Yeah, that is actually stated in the 5th canto also. The demigods, they are glorifying the earthly beings, especially those in India, Bharatvarsha. Very fortunate. But the problem is, even though we have got such a great fortunate position, we don't take use of it. We don't make good use of it. So we have to make good use of it and take to Krishna consciousness. So next, Bhakta Virendra. Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu were sons of Brahmanas as they were sons of Kashyapa. So Prahlad Maharaj, Bali Maharaj were Brahmanas in the lineage of Daityas. Since Uttanapada Maharaj was brother of Uttam Manu, Kshatriya, and Uttanapad's son Dhruva Maharaj was born in a Kshatriya family. Yeah, Dhruva Maharaj was born in Kshatriya family. What is the question? Oh, so Prahlad Maharaj, Bali Maharaj were Brahmanas in the lineage of Dithi and Daityas. Again, Brahmanas and Kshatriyas are not by birth. So if one was an Asura, he is classified as an Asura. Although, like Ravan is also son of a Brahmana. But it is not that he is counted among the Brahmana. He actually was a Kshatriya, but a demoniac Kshatriya that too. So he is acquired. Let's go to this verse by Narad Muni, 7.11.35. Yasya yallakshanam proktam pumso varnabhivyanjakam yadanyatrapi drishyeta tatte naiva vinirdishet. If one shows the symptoms of being a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya or Shudra as described above, even if he has appeared in a different class, he should be accepted according to those symptoms of classification and not according to birth. Next question by Sanjay Sukhdev. Haribol, my spiritual question is, in the Vedas, is it mentioned that when one dies in the light and one dies in darkness, what is meant? Well, this is also explained in the Bhagavad Gita. So, it has many layers to its understanding, but the most easiest understanding is, the actual understanding is that one should die in light. That means, that is Brahmana. That means he should die in knowledge. I'll show you one verse. This is from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. It is quoted in the 2nd chapter, 7th verse purport of the Bhagavad Gita. You see this now. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 3.8.10. The perplexed man is described as follows. Yova etat aksharam gargi aviditvasmal lokat praitisa kripanaha. He is a miserly man who does not solve the problems of life as a human and who thus quits this world like the cats and dogs without understanding the signs of self-realization. This human form of life is the most valuable asset for the living entity who can utilize it for solving the problems of life. Therefore, one who does not utilize this opportunity properly is a miser. So this is called dying in darkness, who is not enlightened in spiritual life, in spiritual reality, who he is. Like, who am I? Who is God? If he doesn't know all these things, then he quits this world like the cats and dogs without understanding the signs of self-realization. You see that? On the other hand, there is the Brahmana, or he who is intelligent enough to utilize this body to solve all the problems of life. Ya etad aksharam gargi viditvasma lokat praitisa Brahmana. So, one who is intelligent and he understands, he quits this body in full understanding of the nature of the soul, and he is not bewildered by that. Dhiras tatra namuhyati. He is called a person who is dying in light. Therefore, the Vedas recommend uttishtata jagrata prapta varan nibhodata shurasya dara vishita nishita duratyaya durgam patastat kavayo vadanti. So, uttishtata jagrata. And then it is said also, that means wake up, don't sleep. Wake up from the slumber. Don't remain in darkness, come to light. Asatoma sadgamaya, tamasoma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritam gamaya, om shanti shanti shanti. So this is the Vedic mantra. So asatoma sadgamaya. So don't stay in this asat world. Go to the sat world. That is the eternal world. Sat chit ananda. That is the spiritual world. And that is affected, that is possible by the association of satsanga. If we take asatsanga, then we will remain in this material world. So asatoma sadgamaya. Don't associate with asat people. Asatsanga tyaga ei vaishnavachar. So who is asat? Stri sangi eka sadhu Krishna bhakta ar. The person who is a stri sangi, a person who is associate of women, and Krishna abhakta, the one who is not a devotee of Krishna. So these kind of association we should avoid, and satsanga. So we have to take satsanga, devotee association, and then we will go to the sat loka, which is the spiritual world. And then asatoma sadgamaya, tamasoma jyotirgamaya. Don't remain in darkness but come to the light. Don't remain in ignorance, come to the knowledge. Mrityorma amritam gamaya. Don't remain in this world of repeated birth and death. Mrityorma amritam gamaya. Go to the world of immortality. That is the spiritual world. So that is the whole direction of the Vedas. Always come out of this and go there. That is called dying in darkness or light. Next, question by Naveen Kancharla. Hare Krishna, can you please tell the scriptural reference for Krishna's name and Krishna is the same? So it is here. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhyalila, chapter 17, text 133, Nama Chintamani Krishnas Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Purnah Shuddho Nitya Mukto Abhinnatvan Nama Naminoh. The holy name of Krishna is transcendently blissful. It bestows all spiritual benedictions, for it is Krishna himself, the reservoir of all pleasure. Krishna's name is complete and it is the form of all transcendental mellows. It is not a material name under any condition, and it is no less powerful than Krishna himself. Since Krishna's name is not contaminated by the material qualities, there is no question of its being involved with Maya. Krishna's name is always liberated and spiritual. It is never conditioned by the laws of material nature. This is because the name of Krishna and Krishna himself are identical. So this is actually a quotation from Padma Puran. Next question by Mataji Jyoti Saraf, I think from Kolkata. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, can't we worship only Lord Krishna? Why do we need to worship all other incarnations of the Lord when they are all Lord Krishna? Correct. So, by worshipping Lord Krishna, you're already worshipping all other incarnations, while worshipping Krishna itself. So, if you see here, Prabhupada mentions something interesting in the 18.65 of Bhagavad Gita in the purport. You see, these words, okay, what words? Let's go to the words. Manmanabhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuro mame vaishyasi satyam te pratijane priyosi me. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. Now here, Prabhupada says, these words stress that one should concentrate his mind upon Krishna, the very form with two hands, carrying a flute, the bluish boy with a beautiful face and peacock feathers in his hairs. There are descriptions of Krishna found in the Brahma Samhita and other literatures. One should fix his mind on this original form of Godhead Krishna. One should not even divert his attention to other forms of the Lord. The Lord has multi-forms as Vishnu, Narayana, Rama, Varaha, etc. But the devotee should concentrate his mind on the form that was present before Arjuna. Concentration of the mind on the form of Krishna constitutes the most confidential part of knowledge, and this is disclosed to Arjuna because Arjuna is the most dear friend of Krishna's. With Krishna, relationships like Sakhya Rasa, Vatsalya Rasa and Madhurya Rasa are possible. Friendship, parental and conjugal love. Whereas, even with Narayana, the maximum one can go is Dasya Rasa, a servant. We're not saying that one is greater than the other, but still, you see, Krishna, even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he went to different Vaishnavas, Shri Vaishnavas and even Tattvavadis, Madhvas, so he always nudged them to rise above Lakshmi Narayan worship and start worshipping Radha and Krishna. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. So he established the supremacy of Radha Krishna worship as even higher than Lakshmi Narayan worship, because Radha Krishna love is even higher, technically speaking of. Although it is not that Hanuman is a lesser of a devotee than the gopis or something like that. Each has his own taste, but that taste is revealed when one is actually pure. One cannot imitate that now. Some people say, Prabhu, I have attachment for Lord Ramachandra. First of all, you get out of your anarthas first. Lust, anger, greed, all this must go first. Then let's speak about Ramachandra or Krishna or Varaha. Let's see then. First thing is, we have to get our anartha. And when we are actually in the pure stage, then we will see where, what is the actual rasa. But even then, one can still go higher and higher. Actually, there is a scripture called Brihad Bhagavatamrita where Sanatana Goswami has described how this Gopa, he actually rose even from Vaikuntha and he went all the way to Goloka Vrindavan. So that story is there, that narration. So it is even possible there also you can change your, rasa. But some devotees, they don't want to change. They are just fixed and they are happy with that, and Krishna accepts like that. But thinking of Krishna is the most confidential instruction of all. Next question by Bhakta Virendra. When the soul leaves body from upper bodily holes of eyes, ears, mouth or nose, he reaches upper planets or attains spiritual world, and when a person dies by passing urine or stools, the soul leaves the body through lower holes wherein he goes to hellish planets. Is it true? Yeah. It is stated in the... We were actually reading that in the... What is that? Puranjan's life in the 4th canto. We read all that. What is the destination of the soul when it passes through the different holes of the body. And basically, as devotees, we don't need to think about that so much. We just have to remember Krishna at the time of death. It doesn't matter. We're not wanting to go to heavenly or hellish planets or earthly planets. We are wanting to become devotees of Krishna, and next life, if we can become devotee, that's the best. If we can go back to Krishna Loka, that's the best. So we have to. It doesn't matter anymore whether it's in the northern hemisphere, the sun is in northern hemisphere or southern hemisphere, because those are also considerations to note. Bhishmadev waited for the sun to move into the northern hemisphere and then quit his body. Of course, he was always a devotee, but still, he thought himself as a humble, devotee. He thought himself incapable of, thinking of Krishna. So he waited for that. Otherwise, there is no difference. Like Prabhupada, he left in November, which is the sun is in the southern hemisphere. But can we even comment on where Prabhupada went? There is only one place, Krishna. He is with Krishna. So it doesn't matter. These things won't matter if one is a devotee. So we should mainly become devotee. Not try to, all these so-called auspicious and inauspicious things don't matter if when one is actually a devotee. Then everything is auspicious, no matter what. Next question, Bhakti Najanya. What is black magic? What will happen to such souls who are doing black magic? Well, they are in the mode of ignorance, and they usually get haunted by ghosts, and they always get, in this mode of ignorance. This is tamodvaram, What happens to them? They go to hellish planets. That is also explained. 925. 9 chapter 25th verse. Yanti deva vrata devan, pitrinyanti pitrivrata, bhutani yanti bhutejya, yanti madhya jinopimam. Those who worship the demigods will take birth among the demigods. Those who worship the ancestors go to the ancestors. Those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings, and those who worship me will live with me. So that's what happens to them. They go to the ghostly planets. Next. Krishna Smaranam Prabhu. Ramadan is a Sanskrit word. Is it connected to Arabic? It's an Arabic word, but there is Rama there, so some benefit is there by chanting that name. That's all I can say. Oh yeah. So Brajkishore Prabhu has shared the verse, the shloka. Wow, I can't even imagine we are at the end of the session. Wow. We made it. Okay, it's a quote from Brajkishore Prabhu about family members coming together. 6.15.3. 6.15.3. Yatha prayanti samyanti sroto vegena balukaha samyujyante viyujyante tatha kalena dehinaha. O king, as small particles of sand sometimes come together and are sometimes separated due to the force of the waves, the living entities who have accepted material bodies sometimes come together and are sometimes separated by the force of time. This is one. There is another also with the straw. Same point. So we made it. We made it through. Thank you all for asking wonderful questions. In fact, really, I myself learned. I never heard of that Vyadha Gita before, and that was something I learned today. And also regarding the references concerning the Shraddha also. I made a little bit of search into Prabhupada's books and all that. And yeah, so it is a good learning process for every one of us, even me included, of course. I'm just a student here. We're just trying to share knowledge here. All right. Thank you very much for joining in and asking all the questions. So we will continue this every week on Mondays. And tomorrow we will go to our regular programming with Bhagavad Gita 4.7 and 8, where why Lord Krishna incarnates. We have learned how he incarnates in his same body, 4.4 through 6, and now in 7 through 8 we will learn why he incarnates. And that's going to be the class tomorrow. Alright, see you tomorrow then. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Kodi Vaishnav Vrind ki jai, Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol, Hare Krishna.